There we go. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's around the world. This is your boy, Apologist Christian Apologetics, and today I'm joined by Roy from Logos and Milton Scottis, also from Logos or from somewhere else.
Yeah, he's from
Apologist.
Oxford. Yeah,
Okay,
bro.
gotcha. Cool. And we have some guests with us today. We've got Hamzi and Banny.
What's up?
Hey.
What's up, guys?
What's up, man?
Hey,
How
man.
are you?
Doing well.
Mhm.
But Banny, are you the other Muslim that Hamzi brought in?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Cool. All right, but yeah, as usual, we have a call and stream for any guests who want to know about the truthfulness of Christianity and the arguments related. So without further ado, well, let me go actually introduce ourselves real quick. So let me share my screen. Share screen. Window. I think it's this one. No, let's not share audio. But yeah, this is Logos' YouTube channel. They've been really helping me out with pushing more content recently.
I don't think it's
Um,
sharing on our end.
Yeah, I'm not
Oh,
seeing
okay.
it.
Yeah,
Hold
no,
up, give me a
hold on.
second. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, now it's just showing the StreamYard. Okay, there we go. Yeah, Logos has been helping me with pushing out a lot of content, for content creation. They've been helping me out with streams, and so please, show us some love over here from Apologist Christian Apologetics. Any upcoming projects you have, Roy?
Yeah, the video
Just
on
the usual.
text should be coming out like next Friday, basically.
Which one?
We have a video on text criticism about whether the New Testament is corrupted, or I guess it's more about whether or not you can say it's corrupted just because we don't have the autographs of the text.
Oh, I should be interested in that.
Gotcha. Looks like Modern Atheism is also in the chat. Hey, Modern. Okay. So since we already have a guest, Hamzi, did we? Well, actually, Modern, feel free to jump in if you're just gonna watch. But right now we do have a guest, who's a Muslim that just called in. But we will get to
Yeah,
you eventually. Like in term, if you have your own objections to Christianity.
yeah. About like the schedule, right?
Yeah. So for context, guys, I agreed to some sort of debate.
Formal.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, we can. If you want to organize it, we can just host it on the Imago Logos server. That's
Yeah,
probably
sorry,
easier
Yeah.
I was
to control
echoing
on it.
on my side. But yeah, I agreed to a debate against Hamzi on the reliability of the Quran versus the reliability of the Bible. So be on the lookout for that. We might have some
Okay.
little informal discussion right now. Since I was under the impression that today's discussion was going to be about that. Oh, that's fine. Maybe I'll call in later or something. Yeah, no worries, Modern. Um, but yeah.
Yeah.
So how about let's get your introduction out of the way, Hamzi. So who are you and why are you here and what do you do?
Oh yeah. My name is Hamza, right? I'm a Muslim from Syria, right? I'm here just to schedule a debate and maybe even talk about theology a little bit. You can ask questions, I'll answer. I'll ask questions, you answer, and yeah.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So yeah, so it looks like you said the Bible versus the Quran as the main debate, as opposed to the Bible versus Islamic history, which would include things like the Hadith. Um,
Uh,
Now
yeah,
that being
no,
said,
because
I don't think you can fully remove the Hadith from the discussion. I think the Hadith tell an interesting traditionalist narrative of how the Quran was compiled, namely under the Uthmanian Codex.
yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, how there's really statewide sponsored controlled transmission. Um, I would argue that even in light of that, we do see different qira'ats or different ahrufs, which
Yeah,
are
Can I explain?
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, there's just different readings. They don't have like different meanings or anything. For example, one of them says Maliki Yawmiddin, right? It's the translation is the owner of the Day of Judgment. Another qira'ah says Malik Yawmiddin, which means king of the Day of Judgment. Now, both are accepted because both are valid, readings. They don't really change that much.
Yeah, I could actually give you a qira'ats that actually contradict. Hold up, let me stop sharing this.
I mean, hey, bro, I'm still, I mean, you saw the chat. So, again, I need to do more research and other stuff. But
Okay, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
I only
Just continue.
Apollos, please get a buzz cut, says Meaty. Fat chance. But
You should get the
ew,
broccoli.
says Zay. But yeah, no worries. We don't have to like do the debate right now, but
Yeah,
that's
no.
the context of the debate. I just wanted to get clarity on like the role of the hadith in this discussion. Like
Yeah, okay.
so I guess like then to probe just a little bit further, because at essence it's going to be arguing that the Islamic history is more reliable than the Christian history.
Essence?
Yeah, so like I guess like the whole point of the debate is like if we were to prove that Islamic history is more reliable than biblical history, then that would be on good grounds to accept Islam. Or would you take the position that you'd accept Islam on different reasons?
Yeah, I would accept Islam on like its historicity and the reliability.
Okay, so like would you accept Islam based off of is the reason why you're a Muslim, let me put it this way, is the reason why you're a Muslim because you believe Muhammad did miracles?
Yeah, that
Like
was one
shoot water
reason.
out of his, fingers or like split the moon and stuff like that?
Yeah. Oh, there are much more, but yeah, those are main ones.
Okay, so I do think then that we should scope the debate uh to include the hadith, but what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, yeah, but to make
Like
it
hadith
fair,
reliability?
yeah, okay, Hadith Quran reliability versus Bible reliability. So about the debate itself, right? Opening statements and all those things. What the hell was he taking? Huh?
Huh? What's that? I was
Beg your
just pulling
pardon,
up
Roy?
comments just to
Okay. Uh,
yeah, just to give the audience what they want, so
okay.
you're not a scholar.
So about like the opening statements and other things, right? Because I feel like this debate would need lots of references about reliability and other stuff from books. Like, for example, this quoting Jesus or Forged by Bart D. Ehrman. I feel like the opening statements would need to be long in order to us to get out our full arguments, right?
Okay. Yeah, no worries.
So,
Yeah.
like 25-minute opening statements or more.
Okay, yeah, that works with me. And then are you fine with like
Yeah,
Amago Logos moderating it?
yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want to sort out the date now, or like, do you want to do that later? Because usually, what we'll do for our debate structures is openings, um, rebuttals, then cross exam or open dialogue, then closing, and we keep it simple like that. I think that should be fine, right? If you
Oh,
want to
yeah,
change
yeah,
it,
no, yeah, no, it's fine.
change it. Yeah, if you
So,
want to change it to like another format, we can talk about that. But that's just like the default format we use.
no, no, yeah, no, I'll take the default format. So,
Okay.
opening statements, 25 minutes. Rebuttals, how much?
Rebuttals.
So opening statements are 25 minutes?
Yeah,
We might have to cut out rebuttals then if we want to do opening statements for 25 minutes because
Yeah,
that's
I was
already
gonna
50
say.
minutes. And then if we do another, that's going to be another 50 minutes, and we're just not going to have time. I think it's best if we do 25 minutes opening statements if you want to stick with that. Then we can do open dialogue for, oh, that's 50 minutes. If you want to make this a 2 hour debate, then we can do open dialogue for like an hour, then finish that off with 10 minutes closing.
Okay,
dialogue,
yeah,
one
that
hour.
works. So
Okay, yeah,
like
cool.
yeah,
Or
sure.
if you want to make it a little shorter, we can do dialogue 30 minutes, then closing statements 10 or 20.
I feel like the majority of the debate wouldn't like happen on like the open dialogue though. So
Yeah.
that's just my
So yeah,
opinion.
let's make the interaction or the open dialogue like 30 minutes.
Well, the issue is that
Um,
you would so the issue is that would make the dialogue the same length as the what's it
opening
called?
statement.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure, no problem.
Yeah. That's the only issue with that.
Yeah, yeah. Because if we're putting out like 25 minutes worth of like content for an opening statement, like we definitely need like a lot of time to unpack that.
Okay.
For context, like say for example, like modern day debate, they typically have like 10-minute opening statements and an hour discussion. So that kind of gives
Okay.
you a feel of like how debates usually go. But I'm fine with like like changing the parameters here and there.
Okay, yeah. But the dates, right? So, but what about like the date of the debate?
Gotcha.
Since I and maybe even you need to do more research, right?
Yeah, more research wouldn't hurt. Um,
Okay. How about like a month or two from now?
okay, yeah, that works.
Okay.
I will say that like I have a practice debate against someone on the 31st. Well, I'll be actually role playing an atheist in Inspiring Philosophy's Discord, debating against gospel reliability. So basically doing like a devil's advocate sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah. So be on the lookout for that. For those of you guys
Wh-
who
wh-
are on the Inspiring Philosophy Discord, but yeah.
Okay.
So if it has to be later, then I would say like 1.5 months or 2 months from now. So
Okay. So like, well, what is today? Hold on. October 11th. When is that going to be? Like,
my debate is on the 31st. So I should be done with like honestly any of these Saturdays in November should be fine.
okay, for let's say.
Except the first, because
So
I'm
wait a
just getting
minute.
done with
Let
my
me
other
calculate.
debate.
The 7th of next month, or is that also Sunday?
We can do it on a Friday if you want.
Okay, yeah, Friday, no problem. About Friday, when? Because today is October. Next month is November, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so November, what? 11th? 12th? What?
Let's shoot for the 7th.
Okay, November 7th. That'll be the date. The opening statement's 25 minutes. And then dialogue, how much? 30 minutes. And then closing statements, 10 minutes. And then
I'm
maybe
thinking
even
we should wait. How long's the opening statements? You said?
25 minutes. Look.
Yeah, I think we should make the discussion an hour long. Um,
Oh,
if the opening statements is gonna be
interaction?
25 minutes. What's that?
Interaction?
Yeah, like just back and forth. Like both speakers can talk, both speakers
Oh,
can
okay.
ask questions, both speakers can answer, clarify,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. All right, sounds good, man. Do you have like any questions on Islam or like the Quran, for example?
Um, I'll let you know if I have any other questions. But I think
Uh,
I have a good idea of where we want to head the debate. If it's going to be both Quran and Hadith reliability. Um, so
all right. Well, I'm
yeah.
gonna need to do lots of research. Damn. But I think I'm already like 50% of the way there on the Bible. Just need to add extra info. So I just still need to do my research on the Quran and Hadith.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, dude, like yesterday I was going over Joshua Little's like 21 points like on my midnight walk, so
His
because
worst point on the 21 points are probably the Hadith contradict each other. But
oh really?
that is probably the worst argument. But yeah,
That's interesting. Um
yeah.
I haven't looked at like the specific contradictions. I know he talks about like things about like different male rulers and I mean, we do the same thing with like gospel reliability, but in terms of like
Okay.
resolving like conflicting accounts. But
Yeah, but
I think like the
I
stronger
got-
points are like he even said that himself that the stronger points are towards the end of the list because it's ordered from least strong to greatest of like argumentation
okay.
strength, evidential weight.
Yeah. By the way, didn't Motsky, you know who Motsky, right? You know him?
Modsky. Do you know him, Roy?
Mozzie?
Motsky, Motzki. And the dude that like responded to Joshua Little on the 21 points.
Um,
I haven't heard of him, but
Yeah,
I can.
that doesn't
I
ring a
know that
bell.
Fareed responded to Joshua Little,
Yeah,
for
that's probably
example.
gonna be a part of the
What's that?
presentation. For Reed's like live stream, I'm probably gonna add some points from there.
Okay,
So
yeah, no
yeah.
worries. Yeah,
Hey,
and
sounds good,
then
man.
yeah, for sure.
See you later.
Okay, yeah, see you later. All right, all right.
Oh, hold on.
That was our guest Hamza. And yeah, we just did a little bit of organizing of an upcoming debate, and hopefully that'll be in the works sometime soon. If there are any changes, we'll let you guys know. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna read some of these comments. It looks like that Meaty and Mystic are just going back and forth between some theological discussion that I should probably be more aware about. Yeah, like you asked me if I'm like a what is it called? A diophysite or like a monophysite. I have no idea what you guys are talking about, so
Are one of them called Armenian?
that I know a little bit about, like how it's contrasted about against the Calvinist tradition, but yeah, like I consider myself more of an apologist as opposed to a theologian. No, not anytime
Bro said
soon.
go bald.
Maybe when I'm like 60 or 50, but not now.
Like I said, you should get the broccoli.
What's wrong with my hair, guys? What's wrong with my hair? All right.
Mozzie says that to everyone. He's just mad that he got a buzz cut and he no longer is a dreadhead.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to play a little bit of some of Logos's recent debate on whether the Trinity is polytheistic while we're waiting for another caller. So, yeah, let me do that. Do this. Present. Let's share it again. And let me know if you guys can hear it in the chat too. Once I start presenting this debate. Share audio, yes. Full screen. We shall put it in the stage. Alright, I'm playing it. Y'all are in for a treat. I saw this earlier. How many of you guys did not see it, by the way?
I haven't.
And you haven't, Banny? What about you, Militant Scottis?
Hmm?
Did
You
you
saw
see the debate, is the Trinity polytheistic by Roy against
I saw
What's
like
this
a
guy?
clip of it. Oh my god, it was embarrassing for the other guy.
Okay, gotcha.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Hopefully we'll get to that clip. Let me know if you guys cannot hear this.
What you're about to see is a debate between me and a Muslim by the name of Levant. For context, I sent an argument
Oh man. Come on. Don't do this.
about the Islamic dilemma to someone in a group chat on Instagram for them to review it. But then roughly 10 to 20
Bruh.
minutes later, I saw that someone had challenged me to a debate on it.
Okay, it looks like my computer is being
And
a
I
little bit-
accepted it, but I told them that they should get on a call in Discord because we were streaming with Apollos. And I wasn't going to just leave the stream and the call just to go debate someone on an Instagram group chat. I even offered to let them do a 3 versus 1 against me live on stream on whether or not the Trinity was polytheism, which is another topic they wanted to debate me on. They refused to join the Discord call and said they could not download the app. They also challenged someone else in the group chat to a debate.
I'm using my laptop, by the way. That's why the background's different, but in any case, my desktop is a lot more powerful at gigabit upload speeds, and yeah. Hopefully you guys can bear with me here for just this stream.
Later the next day, I sent an invite to another stream, which we did with Apollos, that was a call-in stream, where they could all call in and join on a public platform to debate us live. They did not join. Then, later that night, I was asked to debate in an Instagram call, again in the same group chat, and although I would rather have done this on a stream or in the call that I wanted to do initially, I decided to call anyways, and I got the okay to record the conversation.
Argument. So, by the way we usually count things, why do you think there are not three separate
Yo,
gods
guys.
in the triune Godhead that you refer to?
Because there's...
Yo, Apollos.
Oh yeah,
You
someone
guys-
said something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, my mom is low-key back from work. I gotta go like help her with the stuff. I gotta go.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
Yeah, I'll see y'all. God bless,
Alright, see you,
guys.
man. God
see ya.
bless. God bless. God bless.
no distinction considered as God. There's only distinction considered relative to the sortal of person.
No, okay. So do you believe that Trinity is triconscious?
No. There's one divine mind that's
What?
undivided. There's one divine
It's
mind.
one mind?
Yeah, there's one mind that's undivided. Also, what is the point of shifting to three consciousnesses from that? If you want to make a...
Bro,
Well, hold on. If you want to make an account... Okay, if you want to make an argument from counting
Roy,
methods...
Roy, let me answer. You said that there are three... You concede that there are three persons in the Trinity, right?
Yeah.
So they are not... So what do you mean by a person then?
What in this case, the persons are subsistent relations.
They are just subsistent relations, which
Yeah.
mean you can just disregard them and they don't have minds of their own?
That's not what I said, no. What I said is that they...
Yes.
Do you understand how we define persons?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, what is it?
A person, by a general philosophical definition, I mean,
No,
it's
no.
it's a quasi, I know, wait, it's a quasi-technical term in the Trinity. It refers to something that can be addressed.
What?
Wait, hold on. Pause it there.
So,
I can't be the only one that heard can be at rest.
Yeah, no, that's what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. He said can be at rest.
Yeah, he was very underprepared.
Yeah, I don't know what this what's his name? Levantine guy was saying. He's totally all over the place with counting by vision and stuff, as you guys will see soon.
It went downhill the
I
moment.
think that can be at rest.
Sorry, I was to say it went downhill the moment he brought up this consciousness, one divine mind. I think that his entire argument hinged off of that, and then once that was incorrect, you didn't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that I don't understand with LPTs. It's that, you know, like, if we have this construct under the sort of person and we define it differently from everyday usage, you know, who's to say that we couldn't, like, use that in our sense? Because at the end of the day, LPT is an internal critique. So, if they want to make the external critique... Sorry?
Here's like I wouldn't say it's different from everyday usage because I'd say that when we say the word person, we're going to be referring to an individual subsistence of a rational nature. I don't know of any counterexamples of that besides, like, I guess personification.
Yeah, but I guess I'm just saying, like, in principle, like, if they want to argue that for some reason that persons are, like, poorly, illy defined, like, in the context of the Trinity, then I don't see why that internal critique is justified, unless they make an external critique and say the Bible actually doesn't say that, which is its a whole other debate, to be fair, so, but anyway, we shall get ourselves back into the video.
Yes? Did you say that something can be at rest, or did I mishear you?
Yes, someone. I mean, someone who could be addressed, not something.
He actually
No, we would say
confirmed
that
it.
a person, we would define it formally as a person is a individual subsistence of a rational nature. Or we would
there's
say,
no, like,
we would say,
there's no like universal definition of a person even in your own theology.
no, I never said that, but what we define it generally as an individual subsistent. We just differ on what it means to subsist.
Okay, so, but I've never heard a Trinitarian say that that God is not tri-conscious, man. It's like literally you're pulling new things up.
No, that's not true. The view that there's one undivided mind in the Trinity is the classical one. The view that there's three.
Yo, bust down. You want to crash out of that?
Yeah, so if you guys don't know, this is the view of the social Trinitarians, where basically each subsistent person has each their own individual mind and will. This just borderline just becomes tritheistic, because then you can just have conflicting ideas within the Godhead, which just cannot happen. And I think also with I would also argue that like this kind of thing with three separate wills and then they're like composing into one Godhead, I feel like this just leads to partialism, and then just denies and like collapses the divinity of the Trinity, because then you're just saying, oh, then well, what put them together? Because the parts came before the whole thing, and then something had to create those parts. So it kind of just like devolves into, it just collapses it into tritheism, and then like them not being the supreme God at all. True Orthodox Christianity holds to one mind and one will. So, not really sure what this guy's talking about, how this is a new thing. This was always understood to be the case.
Yeah, just what Roy said in Homologous. It's a philosophical debate, so yeah, a lot of the terms are used in non-colloquial ways. Let's see, what's this in the private chat? Can y'all hear me? Yeah, we can hear you, Dr. Bustown. We heard you the entire time. But we shall continue on.
Minds is this new social Trinitarian thing, which both Catholics and Orthodox reject.
But no.
You can look at.
Rave. He's an East Oriental Orthodox. I debated him like 1 week ago.
Who said that?
And he just repeats. Yep, Rave. I guess his name was Rave or something.
Rave is an Oriental Orthodox. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, Oriental Orthodox. So he says like.
Yo, hold up, are
the
there?
Trinity is composed of 3 minds.
That man Rave is like Eastern Orthodox, and I don't even think he debates seriously. He might have just been trolling him.
That's actually sad. If you can debate like the trolling version of him, but I haven't seen what this guy Rave did, so. But yeah.
Each distinct and fully divine.
Yeah, we don't say
that. They have
that.
the same will, he says. He says they have the same will.
Yeah, we don't say that. We say they have one mind.
So you believe that there is one mind, so it collapses under one person.
No. Because we don't... because I told you, we define person as individual subsistence. There's going to be 3 subsistences there, so therefore there's 3 persons.
So it's an individual subsistent which has a mind of their own?
What do you mean by mind of their own? We say they're identified with a mind. It's just that the 3 persons are identified with the same mind.
With a mind. But they do have distinct acts, right? Like
no.
The Father, like in the economic Trinity, the Father can send the Son.
We would say that they're united in their actions ad extra. They
also, you believe that they have distinct acts, and you still...
No, I said they're united in their actions ad extra.
Oh gosh. Man, these are all philosophically motivated arguments. Like, then how are you really distinct between 2 different beings in your theology?
Well, we don't say that they're 2 different beings.
Now, I'm asking you, how do you differentiate between 2 distinct beings in your theology?
Well, I mean, there's many ways you could distinguish them.
Relative identity. Relative identity.
One way would be by relation. So if one being
by relation.
You can
but,
distinguish things via relation, yeah.
All right, watch the
You can
sophistry that's going to
distinguish two
happen.
beings via relation. The father and the son aren't they relational?
That's not. I didn't say that all
The
things that are
relational
okay.
subsistence?
I think you're straw manning me here because what I said
Oh.
is that no. What I said is that you can
So-
distinguish two things by relations. I never said that everything that is distinguished by relations are two beings. There's a key
You
difference.
can distinguish two things, but there is special pleading for.
That's not what I said either. I did not say there's
All
special
right,
pleading
here's the
either.
Yes, that
sophistry.
is, man. Because in your
How so?
simulation,
Okay, what's the
by
special
the
pleading there?
usual way we count things, you
Oh,
would
I wanna
count
pause
three
it here.
gods,
Okay,
but
what's
in
the usual
case
way
of-
we count things?
So if you watch the rest of the debate, it's literally him just arguing that it's special pleading, and he never gives a substantial justification for it. He just says it's special pleading because I don't know, it just is.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure special pleading just means that you have it's like another form of like begging the question, and that's clearly not what you're doing. You're just defining terms under which you sort of like understand the Trinity to be, and you have non-circular justifications for believing in that. So yeah. It's special pleading to say God is not like the creation. Yeah, that's basically what his argument amounts to.
Yeah.
we usually count things by identity.
Yeah, can you prove that?
Yeah, because how many? Do you believe you and I share the same essence?
Depends on what you mean by that. If you mean by individual nature or essence, then no, we would have a different composite of body and soul.
I mean a universal. I mean a universal.
No, yeah, we
essence.
share the same universal, yeah.
Essence. So how many persons are we?
2.
So and by the same method, you counted 2 persons. How many count in the Trinity?
Yeah, we would count 1 because we count by relative identity usually, not by identity. So because the 2 persons are the same under the sort of... Hold on, relax. What I was saying is that we count by relative identity. So because
Now,
me and
just prove
you...
yourself, man.
No, what I said... Okay, look, we're different relative to the sortal person, so we're counted as 2 persons. The 3 persons are the same relative to the sortal God, therefore they do not count as 3 gods.
I'm sorry, Roy, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat?
Yeah, so what I said is that we count 2 persons here because they're distinct between the they're distinct considered as person, or in other words, they're distinct relative to the sortal person. But the 3 persons of the Trinity are the same relative to the sortal God. Therefore, they cannot be counted as 3 gods.
How are they relative to the sort of God, man?
I said they're the same relative to the sortal God.
So, also basically saying they're not different instantiations, right?
No, what I said is that they're not different relative to... Do you know how relative identity works?
Explain me.
Yeah, so...
It's relative. It's all relative, you see? It's all subjective. Oh, man.
Jeez, the proof.
You're humiliated. Wallahi, you're finished.
But when you have 2, let's say, variables, x and y, you can make identity statements, but you can also make relative identity statements. So you can say that x is the same f as y, but not the same g as y. So whenever we count things, let's say you have a predicate f, and you want to enumerate that predicate. The way you would enumerate it is you would see which things are distinct relative to the sortal that you're enumerating. So there's 2 f's, if and only if. X is f, y is f, and they're distinct relative to the sortal f. Now, because the persons of the Trinity are not distinct relative to the sortal God, they cannot be counted as multiple gods.
Yeah, but when I say the usual method of counting things, does that include in the relativity?
Yeah, I'd say we count usually by relative identity. If you just look at how we deal with identity over time, or if how we deal with...
We usually count by numerical identity.
That's not true. Can you prove that? Because I can show you examples where we would have to count by relative identity.
No, I just proved you like
How?
a while ago. I said, yeah.
No, when you said that when you count 2 persons, I explained to you how that's better. I explained to you how that's explained by relative identity just as well
No,
as any
by
other
relative
explanation.
identity, we fall into 1 person, I guess.
No, because by relative identity, we're still distinct relative to the sortal person, so we're still 2 persons.
Relative to the?
Relative to the sortal person, we are distinct, so we would count as 2 persons.
Yeah, but By the same method, I see no difference why you wouldn't count 3 persons in the Godhead.
Well, we do count 3 persons because these 3 are distinct relative to the sort of person.
I'm sorry. I mean, you wouldn't count 3 instantiations of the divine essence.
Yeah, we wouldn't count 3 gods because they're not distinct relative to the sort of God.
No, bro, that's a special pleading.
How is that special pleading?
Yeah, that is, man.
Yeah, but how?
Yeah, because I see there's a difference between like how you count in relativity.
Well, I just showed you how we count the same method. We count by looking at sort of
He gave himself away when he said count by relativity.
Yeah, I don't think he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
relative to sortal identity. We don't count by regular classical identity. I reject that notion.
No, because if I say it again, that's a special thing because we do count in regards to numerical identity.
Yeah, but that's your burden of proof. We can look at the examples and we can see any example you want to say is best explained by counting by identity. It's going to be also just as well explained, if not better explained, by relative identity. So the example you gave of, oh, me and you are 2 persons, that works under relative identity because that's just saying that we're distinct relative to the sortal person. But relative identity works even better than counting by identity because it explains identity over time. So, for
it's
example,
lagging on my end.
if you have a person at time 1 and a person at time 2, you get 2 persons are the same relative to the sortal person, but they may not be the same relative to things like age. So you can see that relative identity provides a better explanation than counting by identity, or even with like numerical sameness without identity. That, do you know what that is?
Can you repeat?
Should be better
the
now.
last sentence?
Yeah, do you know what numerical sameness without identity is?
Yo, Apollos.
No.
I was gonna explain this, but he kind of
I'm
this
here.
is where he shifts to counting by vision after this, where he just goes on a tangent and acts like a sophist. So I never got to explain this, but basically, numerical sameness without identity is basically when you have 2 things which are same in a sense, but they're not classically or numerically identical. One way to say this would be, for example, if you have let's say you have a clay, just a mold of clay that exists on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and it just gets, I don't know, zapped out of existence after that. But then let's say on Tuesday, the clay is formed into, let's say it's a statue of David, right? So on Tuesday, the statue of David exists. On Monday, the statue of David does not exist. And then on Wednesday, the statue of David doesn't exist because let's just say it gets melted down. And also at the same time, the clay that forms the statue exists on all 3 days. So what you see is that these things don't seem to be identical in terms of numerical identity because these 2 things, the statue and the clay, one can exist. The clay exists at a time at which the statue does not, implying that they're not identical. Also, you can say that the statue is a holomorphic compound where the clay is the matter and the statue and the shape of the statue is the form, thus making the clay distinct from the statue because it's a part of the statue. Yet, however, and this is important, there's clearly a sense in which the clay and the statue are numerically the same. You can say they're the same material object or they're the same relative to the sortal material object. And so when you go, let's say you go in a room and you see the statue in it, you're not going to count 2 material objects because, oh, the clay is a material object, the statue is a material object. So therefore you have 2 material objects. Likewise, if the statue weighs 20 pounds and the clay weighs 20 pounds, you're not going to count 40 pounds because, oh, you have 2 things in there that weigh 20 pounds. No, because they're the same relative to the sortal weight. So because of this numerical sameness, you can say that they're the same relative to certain sortals, but distinct relative to other sortals.
Yeah, that's a good
And
example.
yeah, so that's one example where you can use relative identity, and this is what Michael Ray and Jeffrey Boutbrower cover in their papers on this. Actually, on my first video on the channel, the video on the logical problem of the Trinity, we go over this.
Y'all at Among Us have way too many videos on the LPT.
Bro, it's because people keep on trying to debate us on it.
Oh, for real?
It's like
Gotcha.
every other day, it's like we get some random guy who like joins the server, and then like just runs the LPT on us or something like that. It's like their favorite debate topic.
Interesting. Interesting.
You could explain it for me.
Yeah, do you know what a hylomorphic compound is?
No.
Yeah, so like, let's say you have a rubber ball, right? That rubber ball is going to be composed of both matter and form. So we're going to say that that ball is a hylomorphic compound of both matter and form. So what we're saying, therefore, is that in this hylomorphic compound, you're only going to, let's say you want to enumerate the amount of red things there are, right? The way you count how many...
Man, basically, no.
Well, hold on.
You basically count the material would be by vision, right?
Yeah. See,
No,
he
you
just
would count by
switches to another
relative
topic
identity
there.
because the rubber ball and
You would count. So
Yeah,
Oh
see how it
man,
just switches? Like, that
Yeah.
was like, yeah, so if you look at that example, there's
that
no
was a
way
big
for him to
crash out.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the big crash out. He's not going to be able to reveal. So the thing with counting by vision, that implies that vision is a sortal or like a relation that you can count by, basically, because like let's say you say counting by identity. Identity is going to be a relation that holds between two objects, like A equals A, and you're going to be counting by that. Same thing with the relative identity. It describes the relation between two things. Now, or same thing with counting by division too, because it describes the relation that two things have. It's in a relation of not being divided. So saying counting by vision implies that vision is some relation that holds between two objects that helps you enumerate them, which is what I first thought he meant, and I was like, yeah, that's not a real thing. But then he said, nah, counting by vision just means you see things and then you count them. But how is that an alternative to relative identity at that point? Because
Yeah.
at that point, you're just saying
We could just
see
say
things.
like we use our brains to count things.
Yeah, it's clearly not what the topic is about.
Yeah.
That like so my entire point about relative identity is like completely fine then, because saying counting by vision doesn't counter it if it's only just saying that we see things and count them. Either way, I don't think you can only count things by seeing them. And someone actually commented that on the original video, because like you can say abstract things like, let's say, the color red, right? You don't see the abstract universal. You only see particulars. Yet you can still count multiple abstract things.
Yeah, for sure. Play.
when you say, so if you see the Godhead of the three persons, are you counting by vision?
By vision?
Yep.
What do you mean? Do you mean counting by division or do you mean counting by vision?
I mean vision. Because
What?
it's only by vision that we count things as they are. I mean, numerical identity subsists from vision, right?
It subsists from vision. I'm sorry, what are you trying to say with that?
So it's basically vision which helps you counting things. So you count things by keeping your eye closed.
Hold on. Can
No,
you
we
pause
wouldn't
it there,
count
though?
things by vision, and that's not the...
So
Is Leviathan a troll?
I mean, yeah, but what's it called? He says the he says numerical identity subsists from vision.
From vision.
What does that mean? Can like someone help me? What does that mean? What did he mean by this?
I don't know, man. Like,
Is he, because the issue is our vision is contingent upon there being things in the world, not the other way around. You could say vision helps us learn things, but that's not the same thing as what's it called? Saying that vision is what causes identity, because identity is logically prior to vision.
yeah, I feel like at that point he should have just said, like, we count things by identity, but instead he wanted to say that you count things by vision or something like that.
Oh, by the
yeah,
way,
it was-
apparently the same guy, he's on Instagram in the same group chat talking to Zay right now or whatever. And
Oh,
he's
yeah?
bringing
crazy.
up this topic again, and yet he's not showing up on
Again.
stream. Yeah.
Link
Or
in,
he's
That's
link
talking
in
about
the
how the
stream.
divine...
Link in the stream
He's,
right
So
now.
that's what this is talking about.
He's talking about how, yeah, the divine nature is like an abstract universal. I just said, yeah, hop on the stream. Stop it. Because he said, he told me he's going to go study more on this because he didn't know my view. And he clearly doesn't know the orthodox view either. So I don't know why he's trying to debate Zay instead of studying. If he wants to debate, I mean, we can just get Zay on here and he can debate him on here. I think that would be pretty funny.
Yeah. And if I want to mention, I would want to ask him a question. How do you count things with your eyes if they're incorporeal things?
Yeah.
like it's not like the Godhead has a body or anything. Without like just assuming a body, but in its essence is incorporeal. It's like one of the divine attributes is incorporeality. So I don't know how you would count something that you just literally cannot see.
Yeah, like this low key like refutes like Tawheed because you can't count one God. You have to count it by
Yeah,
vision.
it just it reduces to atheism. I don't see no
Yeah.
God with my eyes.
Yeah, for sure.
The point of my analogy was to show you an example of counting by relative identity.
So how do you, so if you, let's say, if you look at the Godhead, so how many individuals would you count?
If by that you mean individual subsistences, as in persons, we would count 3 persons.
Yeah, that's where the special pleading comes in.
No, because
You
they're
would count
distinct.
3
What?
persons,
Well, hold on.
3
I already explained
individual
this. It's because they're
subsistences.
distinct
Oh,
relative to the sortal
that's,
person.
That's what we say, they are 3 distinct divine beings.
They're not, because they're not distinct relative to the sortal being.
Oh man, that's what I'm saying, man. Like,
You're just saying it's special pleading.
identity and vision.
You're just
Yes,
saying it's
that
special
is
pleading, but you can't justify it.
It's only found in Christian stipulation, man.
Counting by relative
It's only
identity?
found in
No,
Christians.
that's kind of funny because,
No.
like, just before this, I just showed him an example where, like, you can't count by identity even in regular life. Same with identity over time. If you speak
Yeah.
about 2 persons being the same person over time, then, well, they have to
They're
differ.
unified to the
Yeah,
they're unified to the sortal person, but they're not unified to the sortal time.
Yeah, like if you, let's say you want to say they're the same person but not, like, the same age, or they're the same person, yet one is at one location and the other one is at the other location.
Exactly.
I mean, counting like, let's say what? I forgot that term, man.
Yeah, counting by identity. Is that what you're talking about? Or count relative
Yeah.
identity? Yeah, we
Yeah.
count by relative identity in everyday life when we speak about identity over time, or when we speak about numerical sameness without identity.
No, what
Even
I mean by
Aristotle
special pleading
is okay.
If you look at the Godhead,
If it's special pleading and it's only a
Roy, do you concede? If you look at the Godhead, ignoring the philosophical rumble jumble, if you look at the Godhead, like how many
Even more
individuals
sophistry. He
would you
comes
count?
into a
I told you, if you mean by
philosophical debate. This man came into a philosophical debate, and then, like, everyone said he got cooked, and then he had to, like, shift, say no more philosophical rumble jumble. Like, okay, bro, if you don't,
Oh, for
if you
real.
don't get the, if you don't get the terms, then, like, just don't show up.
Well, to be fair, you have to count by vision because Allah has 2 right hands because they counted by vision, and
Real.
like, yeah, he has a corporeal essence. They know it because they counted by vision. So, yeah.
3 persons. If you mean by person, then yeah, 3 persons.
No, if you mean by vision, how many individuals do you see?
Okay, well, you don't see the 3 persons.
What?
You don't see the 3 persons literally. You can only interact with them through creative.
He's like genuinely surprised. He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
Wait, does he think God is corporeal? Are you serious?
We'll probably go long for the rest of this debate.
I'm trying to get more people in the chat.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I'm trying to find people to come in, but nobody's coming in yet, which is the issue.
Yeah. This might be a little bit of a more lax stream, guys.
Yeah.
I also forgot to advertise it in my other Discord servers.
Just
that
do
I
it now.
belong to.
Do it now. You might as well.
All right. All right. In that case, I shall do that while playing this video. Hopefully, I don't lag.
Thanks. You don't. This is why I don't understand. What like?
Person.
Okay, do you hold on?
So wait.
Either way, though, what do you counting by vision doesn't even make sense. Do you? When we speak
Yes, it
about
does
counting
make sense,
methods,
because
when we
when
speak
you
about
count
counting
things
methods,
by
we're
vision,
talking about a
you're getting
relation.
numerical identity, right?
Okay, yeah, counting by
Count things by vision. Because all this philosophically
Do you,
motivated
when you say counting by vision, can you formalize that at all or no?
It grants you special pleading.
No, it
That's why I
doesn't. Okay,
said
understanding
all this-
philosophy isn't special pleading. If you don't understand that, that's fine. That's your problem. But me
Yes.
understanding how
Now,
Aristotle
just
works or how
mentioning your
Thomism works
stipulation.
isn't my problem.
So,
You're just saying it's special
I think
pleading
you
without
did
elaborating on why.
concede. You would count. No, fam, you did concede. You would count 3 individuals.
I said 3
Then
persons.
after a while, you said you wouldn't count them by vision.
I said if you were asking, do you count 3 individuals? If you mean by that 3 persons, then yes, we would count 3 persons.
Okay, with individuals, what I mean is 3 different instantiations in space. That's what I mean.
No, we don't say they're instantiated in space like different universes,
They are
like human nature is.
So there are no. So there is no truly distinctness between them.
No, there's a relational distinction. I told you, they're distinct via relations of opposition. So the Father begets, the Son is begotten, and the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son.
There's so I'll repeat it again, man. So when you look at the Godhead, when you look at it by vision, how many different individuals would
Is
you
there
count?
still going on?
Okay, you need to first of all explain what specifically you mean by counting by vision, because whenever you speak about counting by,
Sorry, say that again.
This man just went on about counting by vision. It's like
Yeah.
this.
Modern
He kind of
atheism
just.
says he can come in.
Oh, okay. If he wants to do it now, we can do it now, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
like
sure.
he kind of just goes on about this. There's only like one more important part. Oh, right. He says that individual means instantiation in space, and I was like, yeah, I just deny that because why would I accept? Why would I accept the claim that all individuals are instantiated in space? It's stupid.
Yeah.
After that, yeah, you guys know the argument that like, what's his name? Like Orthodox Muslim uses that is the Father necessarily unbegotten? Christians will say yes. She'll say oh, so it's essential, and we'll say no. Then we'll say, okay, so if it's not essential, what grounds the necessity of it?
Modern atheism says he can
Okay.
go now. If we're
Yeah.
done with the
And
video.
he tries to run that argument on us, and I just say, yeah, you don't need a metaphysical grounding for all necessities, because, for example, God is necessary, but he's not grounded in anything else, unless you think God is contingent upon other things, at which point he wouldn't be necessary.
But yeah, feel free to hop in, Modern. But yeah, let me put this up.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think the Muslim like really understood classical theism or like any Orthodox Christian doctrine, because like Catholics, Orthodox, Protestant, Oriental, all would say at the very least that the Godhead is incorporeal in their divinity. So like I don't know where he's getting that they're substantiated in time.
Yeah.
It
What's
all
up, Modern?
Sorry.
How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Doing well, doing well. Again, at my parents' house for the weekend, so the background's a bit different, but it's better than my actual background, so there's that.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why I haven't been able to connect StreamYard with YouTube. I don't know why it doesn't work. It keeps
really?
telling me that I need to request access from StreamYard. Keeps telling me that I need to request access from YouTube. But I need to go live in my channel. But I already did that, so I don't know what's the issue. But okay, I don't know why.
Gotcha.
Just weird.
Yeah, it could be like where you're trying to like, because I actually tried signing into 2 different StreamYards with the same account, YouTube account, which is why we actually have 2 accounts over here that have a pulse, but only one of them has a YouTube connection. So you might want to try like signing in, like, because there's an option to sign in to StreamYard with your Google account just like straight away.
Yeah.
Which is usually what's connected to YouTube, unless you have something different.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I have like multiple emails account, your Google account, and multiple YouTube accounts. So maybe it's getting complicated. Maybe he's looking at the wrong YouTube account somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so here's the thing. Last time I was asking you about the skeptic hypothesis for the resurrection, like that the gospel narrations were the product of a long chain of oral tradition and got changed over time. And one of the things you said, like why you reject this hypothesis, was that it doesn't fit with the what was the name again? The historical reportage model, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so maybe today we could talk about a bit. You could tell me, okay, so what is the evidence for this model? What is the historical reportage model? What is the evidence for this? Like, what specific data does the skeptic hypothesis fail to explain? You know, like what specific data supports the historical reportage model over something like the skeptical model of an oral tradition that evolved over time?
Yeah, so I would say that first to define terms, I would say the historical reportage model is the mere claim that the eyewitnesses that would have been there to see the resurrection were claiming exactly that, as opposed to, say, for example, long chains of oral transmission unchecked by some random, outsider that just wanted to tell a tale, say, for example.
Yeah.
So evidence with this would be things like onomastic congruence, evidence for the authorship of the Gospels, the fact that they get a lot of minor details that would have been really hard to check right. So say for example, especially you see this with like Luke Acts, where they're getting a lot of geographical things right, and like rulerships and like stuff like in the traveler section of Luke Acts. So I guess I would say that the skeptical hypothesis fails to explain like how Luke Acts could get all that correct, and at the same time, get all of these like switch to a mode where he like gets all of this other stuff incorrect. So
yeah, I know what you mean about Luke Acts. I think in particular Acts is probably one of the ones that has like have a most impressive list of details. Correct? Are you probably familiar with this list in the internet? Like 84 things that Acts gets right. Like there is a long list of things. You know this list? You familiar with that?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I am familiar with the fact that it gets things like rulerships that wouldn't have been confirmed unless, say for example, like I think it was like the Galileo inscription, that proved that a certain Roman ruler was proconsul in a certain area for like 1 year, and we wouldn't have known that had it been for that inscription. But in any case, like that as far as like the gospel writers, they wouldn't have known that unless they were there at the location at hand.
Really? So you think it was impossible for Luke to have known that unless he had been there? Like it was.
Well, I mean, like it's totally within the realm of like quote unquote possibility that he just like spent all this money, like actually did the travels, and I guess you could say like was there to witness the events at the right time, but at the same time I don't know, like how do you steelman that argument from your end?
I would say that if the details are a bit too specific and too correct for if someone was completely making up a fictional account, okay, we would expect these kind of things to look different, to be very generic, and not to get, I don't know. I have to look at the exact details, which is particular detail, for example, this consulship. I want to say that just too,
like he
too
gets
detailed.
things like islands that weren't on modern maps or like ancient maps. Sorry, that weren't on ancient maps, but we only found through modern maps. like within the whole, Greco-Roman Sea, the Aegean
Yes.
Sea, I believe, is what it's called.
Yeah.
Like in the Mediterranean, because like Greece is like a U shape. But yeah, it's really minor things, really specific things, not minor, but specific things like that he gets right.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I would say maybe at some point, if you have like too many details or the details are too good, maybe it forces the skeptic to say that there is indeed an historical kernel to these stories, that a real kernel of truth to the story, that maybe Paul did all those trips and indeed told it to somebody, and the details that Luke narrates, they came from Paul indeed, but they still went to this oral process. It's just that some things got added, but some things were true, right? I mean, it's not like a complete fabrication. Just it's based on some real stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I guess one of the arguments against that would be like, if they had the freedom to make up stories just like that, why did they bother to include true stories to begin with?
Sorry, why I didn't hear that last part.
Yeah, why did they bother to go through the lengths that they did to verify like Paul's travels, but not verify like his miraculous endeavors? If they felt so free to like make things up on the spot, like why didn't they make up, some even more embellishments than what we see in like the Gospels?
Why would they do that? For example, what motivation? Why would they want to make it even more embellished?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
No, but that's what I mean. I mean, you say if they were making up stuff, why didn't they make like even more embellished? I mean,
oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah, that's what you're asking. Gotcha. Well, because like under the hypothesis that they were free to make things up without checking their historical veracity, you would expect a lot of more embellishments as opposed to this rigorous fact finding you see in like, say for example, Luke Acts.
Yeah.
Well, so, yeah, and it's not like, I guess like part of this too is that it's not as though you have like the travel section in like one section and then all the miraculous stuff like comes before. Like the miraculous stuff is like interspliced even within the travels, as you know.
Yeah.
So like there's that as well. And what's up, Roken? I'm actually going to be debating Roken on the so I'm actually going to be pretending to be a skeptic on Inspiring Philosophy's Discord. And I'm going to be debating Roken on the gospel reliability, pretending to be an atheist. So like, really? I'm actually going I'm going over Robin Faith Walsh's work on like the genre of the gospels and trying to like
that's cool. I would like to see that. I didn't knew Spanish Philosophy had a Discord.
Yeah.
He does.
I think unless Paul, I guess we can both post it since Roken is part of Manga Logos, and I posted the last debate for it. But I'll probably post it. I can just send it to you, like the debate, if you want to see it.
Yeah. Also,
and I'll be recording it as well, with my camera on.
Is the Discord on their videos on the description? I never seen it.
I can just invite you to it. It's someone just
it should be public access.
Yeah, okay. Roken can just send it in the chat. He probably has it.
I'm on it. Yeah, let me.
That's cool. Yeah, I want to see it. Yeah. When are you guys doing that? Yeah, I think that's a cool exercise. Like to be a bit of a devil's advocate debate, right?
I actually have
exactly.
I have a devil's advocate debate that I did on where I argued for the LPT instead of arguing against it. I have chosen not to release it. I think Bust Down, you were there for that, right?
Yeah, I was there for that.
Yeah, we chose not to release it though.
Yeah. So here's what I think. Like, if one imagines the situation, we're going back to what we say about Acts. Like, for example, Paul, let's say he told Luke a story. We say Luke knew Paul, for example. Told him a story about when he was in the community of, I don't know, oh, thanks, that's great. of let's say Corinth, I don't know, and he talked to a lot of people, right, to try to convince them, to convert to Christianity. He told him the story about his trips, how long it took, and whatever. So later, the person took that story, that specific story, and he wanted to make the narration, the act, more impressive to other people, and so he decided to invent a miracle about it. Maybe, I don't know. He just did it. Maybe that's what he did. So that's why the details match, because he just added it to the correct story that Paul had told him, for example. What about this hypothesis,
Okay, yeah, I think I understand you a little bit more. It's not so much that he's just feeling free to like make up anything. It's more so that he wants to embed it with some, I guess you could say, like reality, and then like embellish whatever embellishments he wants to serve his theological purpose with.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. I know.
It'd be cool to have on hand.
Yes,
yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but
there is a long list. It's called 85 things, 85 confirmed details in Acts. It's very popular. It's from a book. Yeah, blog. 84.
It's Colin Hemmer, I think.
You search in Google and you find it immediately. 84 confirmed details in Acts. It's very popular. It's from a popular book. I don't remember which one, but
I think it's from Colin Hemmer, The Historicity of Acts, or something like that.
Yeah.
By the way, Modern, I posted the Discord link in the private chat here.
Yeah, I just saw it. I just clicked it. Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Nice.
I had missed that because I do join the other people's Discord.
Nice.
So,
yeah. So it's gonna be on October 31st at 3 p.m. Eastern time. It's gonna be primarily like, do you know Luke Vandewey's work at all, or no?
What I know what?
Luke Vandewey's work.
He's on a massive congruence guy.
Yeah. Look.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be incorporating some of that. Jesus and the eyewitnesses, and probably some Craig Keener. So yeah, it's gonna be like, it's not gonna be the basic arguments you hear. You know what I mean? It's gonna be
Jesus at the Eyewitnesses is a very popular book. I think in Spanish philosophy, Spanish philosophy video, the reliability of Mark, I think draws a lot from it. Like he uses a lot of the book. Like his case, in Spanish philosophy's case for the reliability of the Gospels draws a lot from that.
It does, because he argues that Mark, when he writes down the names in his gospel, like he actually knew those eyewitnesses, right? Yeah. That's what he argues for. And then he also argues for, inclusio of eyewitness, when Peter is basically his main.
Yeah, I know that one. I checked that one. Okay, I don't want to spoil the debate by giving Apollo an advantage, but Lydia McGrew has a video saying that she's not convinced by this argument. You know why? Because inclusion of eyewitnesses is not an existing literary technique. It's not like a real thing that exists and scholars agree to it. Bachman claims that he discovered this technique by finding another biographies that they simply started with their lead eyewitnesses and ended with this. But what she says is that basically that this could happen by chance. It just doesn't mean that the guy was an eyewitness. It simply means that if there is a person that is important, then it could happen by chance that it gets mentioned at the beginning and at the end, right? It's not like a real thing, right? That's what Lydia McGrew argues. Yeah, you can check in Google inclusion of eyewitness Lydia McGrew, and she made a full video about it, saying why she's not convinced by this. And she also has a blog post about it.
I'll check that out. Thanks for that.
Yeah, okay.
That's gonna be interesting to see. Apologist, you're gonna take notes on that for the debate.
Yeah, 100%. Thanks, Modern.
Yeah. So there is this other thing that gets frequently comes up, the onomastic congruency, right? It's the issue of that the Gospels, the names in the Gospels, statistically match their names from Palestine at that century, right? And the idea is that someone making up a story from scratch, right, inventing a story, is never going to get a distribution like that. It's like impossible, right? You will
Mhm.
have to have a list and do it on purpose, right? And it's very difficult. It never happens. Like when we look at fictional stories, this almost never happens, right? That's the argument. But here's the thing. There were a couple of skeptics, like Gregory something, a Polish guy, that made a response
Gregory
to
and
them.
Blaise, yeah.
Yeah,
And
a
I actually
response.
plan to like use some of that in my
Yeah,
upcoming
yeah.
debate.
What they say, what? Oh, you want to say something?
No. Please go ahead.
Okay. The main thing, what I think is
Yeah.
important point, is that there are some names, for example, Pontius Pilate or Herod or Peter, even Peter, John. If they were a real, if they are based on a real person, okay, these names come from Paul, from the epistles of Paul, and they are real people. So they weren't their names. Nobody went to a process where, oh, I'm going to invent the names of the disciples, right? They never did that. So they are not invented. So they're names that are not contested or being invented. That's how they call it. And the thing is, you have to remove those names from your statistical analysis, because otherwise, I think what they say is that it will skew your average into a positive direction. And what they say is that if you remove these names, then the match, the statistical match, is like less impressive. I don't know. I haven't watched I watched Paulo Gia's video on this. Mid Vision has a longer video where they explain the case. It's like 2 or 3 hours. I haven't watched that yet. I'm planning to watch it later. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe, but I know that. Yeah.
Lydia McGrew actually responded to because aren't you referenced? This is the argument that what's the name Gregor and Blaise making their
Yeah.
paper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
like
Yeah.
yeah, so I would say that well, I mean, I would probably try to gerrymander the way I argue this if I was going to use some of the information from Gregory and Blaise's video. But as far as like Lydia McGrew's point, I do think she's onto something when she says that you can't just like manipulate the data in such a way that like you're just
think,
going to remove like, oh yeah, the different, or like you have to do like this backwards, like sort of like a manipulation of the data to say like, oh yeah, we're not going to do the common names and then like the repetitions, we're only going to count this as one person and stuff like that. And you said you haven't watched the video, but that it definitely comes across as that, like where they like just say, hey, let's just get rid of like all this data and then we'll consider the onomastic congruence from there. So yeah.
Did I hear you right when you said if you remove the names in Paul, then you don't? Or I didn't hear that right, did I?
Yeah.
No worries. You want to explain it? I think you can explain it better, Roy.
Like the argument she makes.
Yeah. For why, like, the, I guess you could say that the.
Why you can't just throw out the data?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not really a statistician, so I can't really help you with that. But I know the arguments that Vondaway would use, though, because I mostly use their arguments. I don't use McGrew's arguments in this case. Well, I can't tell you though with Vondaway. So the way they would deal with this, I would assume, is that basically, let's just say this way of doing things is correct. The issue is that, it doesn't really matter too much because even if let's say they only had to make up a few names, they still would have gotten like no congruence overall. Because for example, like if you want to counter onomastic congruence,
That's true.
basically you're gonna have to say that well, I don't know, maybe they were like using their knowledge of ancient Palestine to create names that sounded realistic. It's just that we have examples of people doing that and they still fail to meet onomastic congruence. So I mean, in a way, I feel like it's kind of a red herring, and that's what like Vandaway points out is that basically you can test novels that are doing what certain skeptics would posit that the gospel authors are doing. They're just using their knowledge of ancient Palestine to like concoct a story. And he says, yeah, even if you do that, even if you have someone really knowledgeable, like I think he uses like modern works that would have access to like research libraries to know about ancient Palestine. He says that yeah, even those don't achieve onomastic congruence, so that hypothesis doesn't work. And that would be my basic response to it.
Yeah, for sure. Like Luke Vandewey's paper like looks at like other fictional works or like Ben-Hur, like that's the fictional work you were mentioning in terms of like modern times. But to be fair, I think modern atheism, in the Myth Vision video, like was talking about that response, and they seem to be. I mean, it's been a while since I've watched that video, but basically what happened was like they basically reduced the sample size in many statistically questionable ways.
Yeah, if you want the best explanation, I'd just say watch the series because even that went over my head a little bit. The Lydia McGrew's explanation. Maybe you'll get it better.
Now, to be fair, in this whole onomastic congruence thing, Vandaway does point out John's gospel does not reach onomastic congruence. That's correct.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
So the argument has to do with what's it called? The fact that basically, even if a work achieving onomastic congruence implies it being reliable, but a work not achieving onomastic congruence doesn't necessarily imply it's unreliable. And that just has to do with the fact that in certain cases, you're just going to end up with names that are unique. Like if you're working with the sample size, let's say it's a book about military history, you're probably not going to end up with like average names.
Right. That's right.
So I think that's his explanation as to why certain works about Josephus don't achieve onomastic congruence as well.
Yeah, there are some biographies that don't achieve onomastic congruency, but they are considered true, right? Reliable.
Yeah.
For example, a book, about royalty. If the book is about royalty, it's only names that are more popular in royalty, not in the average population, for example.
Yeah, that's what I would say as well. Yeah, so I think that's a good point.
Yeah. So here's another thing. You say that there were comparisons made with purely fictional works, right? Just novels.
Yes, and with other ancient texts that tried to be realistic, or they like Gnostic texts that wanted to like have their story be considered the official one, and it didn't work. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say. That to make a better comparison, you have to look at texts that wanted to present themselves as history, but are forgeries, right? We have to look.
With Ben-Hur, they wanted to present themselves as basically they were trying to achieve onomastic congruence in a way. They didn't say that term, but what you have to remember is that like the hypothesis that they were just making stuff up and that onomastic congruence was just made up because of their knowledge of Palestine.
Yeah.
That's very similar to what like something like Ben-Hur would be doing because he's writing fiction and he's trying to use his knowledge of Palestine to make it seem more realistic. So that's why it's a fair like sample to put in your sample size.
Right, but the audience is supposed to know that this is fiction, right? It's supposed to be a novel. He just wants to make it realistic, like
he just wants to achieve onomastic congruence just for the realistic case. Yeah. Well, I mean, they don't say it directly, but that's kind of the implication because they basically studied like ancient Palestine to get realistic names. And if they couldn't achieve it, then I don't think the gospel authors would be able to achieve it as well because they would have better research methods.
Right. But the thing is, like, were they really intending to achieve it, or because look, this is the thing. When I'm making up a story, a book, if I'm inventing a novel, here's the key thing. What I think is very important here is you don't like to repeat names, and this ruins the thing. Because, for example, let's say your main character is called John, right? Maybe in reality, John is a very popular name. Like 20% of the people are called John. But what happens if you give to 20% of the characters in your book the name John? This is very bad reading because the reader at some point, John this, John that, and it confuses the reader. So for a novel, you try to change, not to use the same name many times, and that's already going to make a huge difference in how a novel does it, right? It's not that they try to get realistic names of the area, but they try to change it to make the reader not confuse himself, because I cannot name my main bad guy John, or his best friend. Like, it could be that in real life his best friend has a good chance of being John, but I'm never going to call him John because this will confuse the reader, right? So that's what novel fiction actors do. They change the names, and this already ruins, I think, the comparison a bit.
That's true, but I would just wonder if we can say that about the gospel authors as well, because they would also care about their what's it called, text being confusing or not confusing.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
you could say that maybe the gospel authors would have done the same if they're writing a fictional text.
Yeah. Here's the. I think I heard one thing. The skeptics say. They say that there are, for example, Jesus was a relatively common name at that time, but there is surprisingly little amount of Jesus in the Gospels. For example, we never come across a side character, so to say, or that is called Jesus. You know what I mean? What they say is like, but somebody
Maybe
will
not
have
in the
to.
gospels, but I believe we do come. There's a place in Acts, I think.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
I
so.
was thinking of that Jesus as well. Jesus
Okay.
in Acts.
Okay, there's only one, but Jesus was very common. So, like statistically, we should see more, for example, and maybe the Gospels specifically avoid. So this makes sense in the skeptical scenario if the Gospel specifically avoided to give the name Jesus to other character because of Jesus was too important, for example. But statistically, someone should have been called Jesus. That's like the point.
I think that gets back into the lack of onomastic congruence doesn't imply lack of reliability, even
Yeah.
if onomastic congruence would imply reliability.
Yeah.
I think I have it. Acts 13. Yeah, bar Jesus.
Oh.
Well, I guess it's not just Jesus wholesale, but still like within
Yeah.
using the name Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, Acts 13 verse 6.
Yeah. So
And then I'm not sure if there's any other ones.
do you know that there is? I didn't notice there is some manuscripts of Matthew, I think, that have Barabbas named as Jesus Barabbas or something like that. I read this in Bart Ehrman. There's some manuscripts that did this modification.
Sorry,
So there are some manuscripts
I think
of
I'm
Matthew.
lagging. I think it's
Oh.
from my end, but what did you say?
There are some manuscripts of Matthew
Hello?
that say
We
the
can hear you.
Barabbas.
Can you hear us, Apollos, or no?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, now I can hear you guys.
Apollos. Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, okay. Now
Hello?
I don't
Can
hear.
you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can hear you.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. Okay.
Everyone can hear each other. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great.
Okay.
So yeah, and I was just saying that there are some manuscripts of Matthew that name Barabbas as Jesus Barabbas. That somebody he had that name, and there is an argument made. Bart Ehrman makes this argument that Barabbas, the whole Barabbas story was an invention, and that there is a symbolic meaning because the name Barabbas
Son of the
is-
Father,
means
yeah.
son of the father, right? So it's like one son of the father gets executed and one son of the father goes free. And there is a manuscript, some manuscripts of Matthew, I think, even change Barabbas to Jesus Barabbas, which is like Batema was saying that they were trying to make this symbolic theme like even more explicit.
Gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know which manuscript that is off the top of your head?
No, I don't know. I just
By
read that. I read that
default,
in
I
Jesus.
would just say that there's a big issue with conflating a motive to make something up and versus like an actual argument for them making it up, because you can come up with a what's that called, I could come up with like a motive for, let's say, I don't know, Bart Ehrman stealing my $20, and I can come up with a scenario in which he does that, which may sound like plausible, but that's not evidence that he actually did that. It would just be
Yeah.
a motive and a theory of which in which he actually does it, not like an actual argument for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
and then
right.
since Jesus, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure like how much of a weight that argument would have, because like Jesus was a fairly common name. So, and Luke Vandewey talks about how you needed to have like basically other names to clarify like which Jesus it is. Is it Jesus Bar Joseph, Jesus son of this person? Is it Jesus Barabbas, for example?
Yeah.
So, like, I could definitely see like how, maybe some scribe like inserted into the tradition. Oh yeah, he was also called Jesus, but other scribes didn't find that particularly useful because it was just such a common name. So
Yeah. So, well, yeah, what you were saying earlier, right? I think sometimes what about the trying to find some symbolic meaning or some motive of this story and saying, oh, well, then it must be invented because it fit this motive. I think sometimes I agree that skeptics take this a bit too far. Like they like this very
yeah,
far-fetched thing, like this word could mean this and this could mean this, and so it was invented for
yeah, it's
this.
like how like Kennedy, like people say that Kennedy's assassination was like Abraham Lincoln's, and then therefore it was like fake or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Yeah. You
So,
can take that too far also, right? Like the symbolic, or like especially like if it's not evident, like the gospels really fill the gospel with like secret symbolic meanings that it's not like so evident for, I don't know. Well, I don't know, maybe the audience back then would have gotten, we don't know that, right? But sometimes it's not so clear at all, right? So yeah.
yeah. So it's interesting because like I'm using a lot of like Robin Faith Walsh's work in like my debate against Rogan, but one of the arguments that I've seen in response to her was that a lot of these like the literary authors of the gospels weren't like super highly educated. They were just educated enough to write, sloppy Greek on the gospels, especially in
Yeah.
the case of like Mark, where
Mark,
you have
yeah,
like
yeah.
all of these like Semitisms, and it's just like in a rush. Like it always says Jesus did this immediately, he did this immediately, he did this. It's just
Yes.
like a huge run on. Um, so like I'm trying to figure out how to like steelman Robin Faith Walsh's work in such a way that incorporates that critique. So yeah.
I'll help out Roken here a bit since you've been getting the most help when it comes to the debate. When
Mhm.
it comes to the gospel supposedly being too technical to be written by that, but to be you could just argue that the apostles would have been technically educated enough given their contacts with Paul. Paul would have been educated on philosophy. We see him using Aristotle in certain cases or citing Greek poems. So if they had access to Paul, they would have had access to probably a more, I guess you could say, an elite form of thinking where they could be educated on Greek philosophy, thus allowing for both traditional authorship and for the Gospels being philosophically technical. In fact, I think that John was like this, where the Apostle John would have known about Platonic philosophy at least a little bit given its usage of logos.
Yeah, for
Right.
sure. John is
But
especially like that.
but I'm not sure about this because I think they didn't spend enough time with Paul. Like Paul, the way Paul tells us, he was with them briefly, and it was 3 years after he started his ministry. He went to them to Jerusalem, I think, and he didn't spend much time with them. In fact, he says he only met Peter and James. It's very little, and he spent very little time with them. Like it wasn't that much. I don't know how much it was. I don't know if he mentions it, but I think it was a small amount of time. And then Paul was traveling around, will founding churches all over the area. So I don't think it wasn't enough time for him to. He will have to actually teach them these things. Like I can't just say, yeah, I know a smart person, therefore I'm able to do everything. I know everything he knows. Right? Obviously not. He will have to spend time with me and teach me because this is stuff you get over years of education. As I'm not sure of the argument.
Well, here's the thing though. I don't know if we can say for sure that the only visits they had or the only connections he had was that one connection. Because people like Locke or Keener will cover this that early Christian communities were very interconnected and knowledge would spread between them relatively fastly. And we kind of
Yeah.
see this with the spread of the epistles, like with First Clement or with Ignatius or with Paul himself, obviously. So things are pretty interconnected. So Paul could have very easily explained these things, um, like maybe even in broader church communities, or perhaps just directly, and that's one way to do it.
Now, Paul does say that he is the apostle for the new covenant to the Gentiles, but I do wonder, in this conversation whether the fact that he says he's a Jew to the Jew, in other words, he's doing the Passover rituals on the yearly basis, or at least tries to. I wonder how much of that plays a role in terms of like him making trips to Jerusalem. But I could be wrong, so.
Yeah, because I know Bauckham holds to this view that John was in like he doesn't say it's the Apostle John. This is John the Elder, so he would say that John was a resident of Jerusalem and he led the Jerusalem church. So if you
Hey,
take
hey, guys.
I don't take Baukham's view, but let's just say you did, right? Then you could I don't know what Roken takes. Roken, what do you take?
Really quick, I just want to announce that we do have a special guest appearing in like 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, cool.
Oh, okay. Who is it?
Pretty big. I won't say, but
Okay.
I can go if you want to give focus on that special guest.
no. It's
yeah.
for you, Modern. It's a gift for you.
A gift?
It's a gift. Well,
I hear.
I have a feel like it's Than Christopoulos.
No,
Yeah,
we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
I heard a guest.
Bro DM Than to hop on here. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
heard
Sam is
guest.
in the chat. Yo, Sam, what's good? Yeah, I think if you take Baukham's hypothesis, I don't know if Roken does. I know Roken is pretty big on Bauckham. Me personally, I prefer McGrew's view, but whatever. John would be located in Jerusalem, leading the Jerusalem church, so Paul would be meeting him. But even if you take my view where John is in Ephesus, I think John would still be going to Jerusalem anyways for Passover. And obviously because we see Christian leaders traveling a lot, actually. So for example, Irenaeus talks about his travels to like Rome. I think he also went to Smyrna, if I'm not mistaken. Similarly, Papias talks about how he would speak with travelers. So there's a lot of travel that just wouldn't be recorded, like, because it would just be like an everyday thing. You're not gonna like record I don't know, you breathing, for example, because that's just an everyday thing. Obviously it's not gonna be as frequent as breathing, but I think you get the point.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the thing. I heard the same thing about Mark. They say that it's a very simple Greek. That the Greek is like simple. So maybe it was like a Jew, a Palestine Jew that learned Greek or something.
It is Than Christopoulos. I'm looking at the Discord right now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Where is this?
The special guest. I was looking at the Discord, and like Roken was asking Than to join, so
Yeah.
I'm like highly confident it's him.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I looked. I have talked to Tano a couple of times in the Big John Steele show. Do you know this?
Oh,
this
for
show?
real? Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been on his show actually one time.
Oh, really? I never seen it.
Yeah, it was
I
a
see.
review of our Craig debate.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Remember the Craig debate?
Yeah, the Craig debate there, that one was a mess of it. Yeah, that Craig is not so good at these topics.
Damn. Yeah, I know he's good with flat earth stuff, right?
Oh, I would love to talk to Tan about the prior of the resurrection if he has time, because it's a big topic and he has some very interesting philosophical arguments for anti-Hume, against Hume argument. I think he's one of the strongest critics of it. He wants to get. He's the one who gets into detail about these Humean arguments against the resurrection of prior probabilities. And this, I also know this. You made a video responding to the skeptical agnostic, right? On the miracles, on probabilities and events, right? So yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Bayesian disciple.
A Bayesian, yeah.
I don't know how I feel about Bayes, honestly.
Yeah, me too. You know, sometimes I also very often I feel like people pull these numbers out of nowhere, really out of their rears.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem. I just don't know how to like accurately assign the probabilities. It seems too vague. Oh, hello, Fan.
There he is.
Whoa. Hello.
There's the
Thanks,
man.
Fan, for joining. I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
I don't even know I'm here, man.
No, we're just chilling right now. We're not debating. I think modern atheism was talking about like the prior probability stuff, so that's why Roken might have wanted you on.
Okay.
What's up, Tan?
What's going on, bro?
Good on you?
Huh?
It's good. Good on you?
I'm good, man. I'm just man. I'm getting old. That's what's happening. It was my birthday on Thursday, and then
happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Happy birthday!
Thank you. And my wife took me out on a really fun date for my birthday out yesterday. So we she took me out for sushi, and then she took me and surprised me with a bistro theater like dinner movie type thing. We watched the Demon Slayer movie.
Yeah, everyone's been talking about that.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah, me too. I watched
haven't
the
seen it,
movie. It
though.
was great.
it was really good.
Yeah, I love it.
I had a bunch of fried food at the bistro, and I just feel like trash now. I didn't drink. I don't drink, not because I don't think anything's wrong with it. It's not worth it to me. I'd rather be jacked. But the fried food, man, I just feel hungover.
Fan, you gotta embrace the bulk. Fan, you gotta embrace the bulk. It's too late for you.
Oh no, man! I gotta get shredded before I can bulk again.
Nah, bro, embrace the dark side. You know it's calling you.
Yes. So, I was watching Apologia's response to your blog post. You have a very cool blog post about prior probabilities and Bayesian argument and Humean arguments against miracles. You know Apologia's. You watch Apologia's response to you?
Yeah, I'm planning on responding. I just haven't had time to.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting argument. Maybe you have time to talk about this a little bit. For example, here is what they say. One of the things they say is that you prior for the resurrection, right? What are the odds of Jesus resurrecting, of God resurrecting Jesus from the dead? You mean like 1 in a million, right? What I want to know is like, what does exactly mean? We need to be more specific about it, because look, here's what I say. You know what are the odds of a woman having 7 babies? This pregnancy with their multiples. It's like 1 in 300 million or something, and yet it had happened. So if you cannot tell me, if someone were to understand things false, right? I would say, you're telling me that a resurrection is more likely than a woman having 7 babies. You know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, this is one of the mistakes that I think that they make. And I think that people like Brian is a really smart guy. But I think this is just one of the mistakes that I think statisticians make. Okay. Brian's got a PhD in physics. He's typically working with base rates and stats, right? And here's the problem: is statistics isn't the only type of probability out there, right? I'm sure you've heard me talk about this before. There's statistical probability, there's physical probability, and there's epistemic probability.
Right.
And so, yeah, we can have a base rate of resurrections over non-resurrections and say, like, the statistical probability of a resurrection is 100 billion to 1. Whatever the number was, right? I don't remember how many.
1 in a million, I think you said.
Yeah. So, well, keep in mind, okay, by the way, for that blog post, I'm not actually like giving the full-fledged argument for the resurrection. The purpose there is just outlining the structure of reasoning and the structure of the argument in the first place. If that was my full-fledged case where I'm actually assigning the numbers and doing all that stuff, which I explicitly say I'm not doing in the blog post, that would have been a way longer blog post, right? So that being said, right, like the one of the objections being that statistical base rate thing. Well, my pushback there is just going to be, well, that's not the only kind of probability on the table, right? Here's just one counter example, right? And this is not an argument against abiogenesis, right? But we have not observed or replicated abiogenesis yet, right? And so if we count up the number of times you have seen life arise, you can ask the question, how many times has life arisen from previous life, and how many times has it arisen from non-life? Well, that's going to be way worse. The base rate's going to be way worse, right? Because it's not just 100 billion humans now. This is like a quadrillion. I don't even know what the number would be, right? But like, it's going to be exponentially higher how many times life has arisen from other life forms, and we've never observed and never replicated life originating from non-life. So that base rate is going to be way lower. The statistical probability of life originating from non-life is going to be maybe something septillion over 1, right? But just on the basis of the testimony of the scientists and on the basis of the testimony of the people that are doing the work, you believe it.
Right.
right? So it's like clearly something else is going on here. It seems like testimony is gonna have way more evidential force, and it's not gonna have this. It's the base factor on testimony is not gonna have this artificial cap that people want to say it's gonna have, and also the prior probability is also just not going to be nearly as low as that base rate, for other reasons such as like epistemic probability and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. Do people believe abiogenesis based on testimony of the scientists, or are people also like thinking of common sense? Okay, unless it is either God made life, or it's my only explanation to how life, because it's like it's my only. I have to infer that it happened. It's either that.
Yeah, I think you can just take God out of the equation here at the end of the day, right? Because you can just still, like, whether or not God is behind the process of abiogenesis or not is not the point here. Okay. The point here is we have two broad hypotheses, right? Some sort of abiogenetic model where life arose from non-life, or some sort of model where life just always existed on Earth, right?
How can it always exist? Always, like forever?
Well, those are the two competing theories at the end of the day, generally speaking, right?
Sorry, I don't get, how could life always exist on Earth, like forever? You mean like it existed down to an infinite past, or what do you mean?
What I don't, so at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter, right? Like the point here is like maybe Earth like arose. This is a hypothesis that could be on the table. Generally speaking, these are the two hypotheses that you could have, right? And then you just try to like account for that through the specific submodels of those generalized hypotheses. Does that make sense? All I'm trying to say is here that God doesn't really have to be in the picture here, because we're just using this as a counterexample to the objection, right? If the logic of the objection holds as a means to undercut the posterior probability of the resurrection in virtue of a base rate that would supply like a low prior, well, this should also hold in this area, is what I'm trying to say, right? But you don't think that the prior probability of abiogenesis is so low that the testimony of scientists can't overcome it.
Right. I'm not sure I'm believing this based on the testimony of scientists. Like I'm taking the word for it. I'm also inferring, okay, life exists. What is the explanation? But okay, let me just say something. There is, when we look at the probability of abiogenesis, we need to distinguish between what is the probability of one instance chemicals are going to create a life, and we can say it's 1 in a 700 billions or whatever. It's super improbable. Another question is, what is the probability that in any of the planets in the universe, which is too many, and over thousands of millions of years, what is the probability that at some point this will happen? All right, that has a different number probably, right? So that's what I would say. By the way, I think, for example, one needs to, when one look at Jesus, one needs to ask the question, okay, there is a different question. What are the odds that God, if he exists, let's say he exists, is going to want to incarnate in some form, right? And what skeptics are.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah. Well, I covered that in the blog. I'm just a little short on time. That's okay. That's the reason I'm cutting you off. I mean, like, here's just another way to kind of go about this too, if you just don't like that train of thought. Even though I do think it's kind of strong. Let's just consider, conditional on God's existence. It seems at least very reasonable to think that God would want to vindicate some sort of religious system, because God was going to want to interact with humanity in some way, shape, or form, right? Well, when you're looking at the past, you might think, okay, well, God knows like what's going to what's going to unfold in the future, and maybe one of the things that God's going to want to vindicate is a story by which will bring tons of good for humanity, right? Tons of progress for humanity, stuff like that. Well, we have all this really strong evidence, for instance, that the Christian story has actually led to amazing goods for humanity: science, women's rights, the stopping of infanticide, so on and so forth. And so we have all of this evidence now. And now if I put this in my background knowledge and then go back to investigate the resurrection, I might say like, well, the probability that I would endorse such a story as the Christian story seems relatively high. And so conditional on theism, and our background knowledge, which is all the good that Christianity has done for the world, I might think, well, the probability that God would want to endorse this story is high, therefore the prior probability for the resurrection is not going to be as low as we might think. Like, there's tons of ways to go about this, is the main point. It's just a matter of like, what's in our background knowledge. And you can't just look at the resurrection in just like in a vacuum, is the point I'm trying to make. Even if you just want to say, for instance, like, let's just say you grant the historical reportage model and you think, well, the prior is just still too low. I'm going to go, well, that's fine. Let's look at modern day miracles. Let's look at the good that Christianity has done. Let's look at XYZ and keep going and keep going and keep going. And like, you're going to just eventually keep coming across evidence, and you're going to keep updating. And I think on total evidence, the posterior probability that Jesus rose from the dead, is still going to come out on top.
Yeah, that's good. So let me respond to that like real quick, since you don't have much time. I think your strongest argument that they can be made is to indeed point out modern day miracles about this, because I think that's the best approach. If I was a theist trying to stillman this, or if I was a Christian, because I could ask the skeptic, okay, why don't you have so many instances of miracles, so many, why don't you include that in the background knowledge? So
I do.
Yeah,
I do.
I think that's the best response to human objections. Okay, now the second point about what you say about the origin of life, I'm not really convinced. You know why? Because I'm not sure that the evidence back in abiogenesis is the testimony of the scientists. The evidence is the fact that life exists. So we need to make an inference. Okay, is this possible? So it's like the testimony of the scientists is not the evidence there. So I'm not sure about that. And
So the inference, so here's the problem. You're looking at the fact that life exists, right? But now, just broadly speaking, what is the probability that life exists given the hypothesis that life arose from non-life? And what is the probability that life exists given the hypothesis that life has always existed?
Life cannot always have existed. It's not possible. Like, how could this happen? Because we know that the earth, okay, maybe.
Well, okay, let me. What I mean by this, right, is that there just was no point in time which Earth existed, and life forms came out from non-life. Like, that's just the counter hypothesis. I'm not arguing for this, by the way, again, right? All I'm trying to say is, hey, this is just clearly not the right way to go about assessing priors. It's not just the base rates. It's not just the statistical probability. In saying that it is, and treating that as a way to undermine any potential arguments for a high prior is just going to be fallacious. I think it's not. It's going to commit the fallacy of understated evidence.
Okay. Just the last thing. What you say about Christianity, there have been a force that it brought a lot of good change for the world, right? Sure. I would agree with that in part, but I would say, was it really Christianity, or was it simply the fact that the wealth and power of the Roman Empire, it became because they were so powerful, and they were benevolent. You know, the Romans were very good with the people they conquered. They didn't, like, they weren't enslaved them. They didn't mistreat them. They actually they were very relatively nice to them. So they have a good model to make an empire. So I would say, was it maybe all this basis of the fundament from the Roman Empire, which is already so powerful and so wealthy?
Yeah, the Roman emperor that didn't do anything about infanticide, slavery, the Roman emperor that, viewed women as objects and didn't really care about pederasty, and you know what I'm saying? I don't know if you've looked at our work on Inspiring Philosophy about
I watched some of Michael's debates on this. He just had one yesterday, I think. Yes, right. Michael had a debate on this. Sure. No, Christianity had some good things. I have to agree with that. But I think, for example, the important thing is that the material wealth of the Roman Empire will create medicine, will create science also. Even if they had other problems, even they had other bad things like slavery and sexism or whatever. But only the material wealth, only that will account for a lot of the goods that was created. And so
that's totally fine. That's totally fine. The claim here is not that that Christianity is the sole provider of any particular goods, right? It's just that it's like in many cases the necessary or catalyzing force behind many goods, and has been the predominant, disproportionately dominant reason why we have so many goods in the world, right? I would even argue that like the good parts of the Enlightenment values were in virtue of Christianity. Many people want to point to Voltaire and Hume and all these other people, and they fail to recognize things like their scientific racism and the horrible utilitarianism that they tried to argue for. It wasn't just like basic utilitarianism. They argued for like eugenics and stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah. Sure.
My wife is also going to pick up the kids right now, so I have a little bit of extra time until they get home.
Okay, that's great. You know, there is this thing when we, for example, you say a prior probability, we have a prior probability of the resurrection of 1 in a million. But what I think to myself is not just these numbers. They feel like sometimes like they just come out of nowhere. Like why not 2 millions? Why not 10 millions? I mean, you know, something that Miley Kona says, for example, is that these actual numbers, they are inscrutable. Like there is no way to know them. Like what are the probabilities of the universe appearing?
Yeah. Have you read any of the? Have you read it? And this isn't like a gotcha type of question or anything like that. But have you like read any of the literature on like the philosophy of probability and how people deal with this idea?
Yeah, I read not much. I read Richard Carrier's article on Hume on extraordinary evidence, where he's criticizing William Lane Craig, and that's not. Yeah, it's not used Bayesian. Yeah, that's not much.
Yeah. So here's one of my things. And I don't want to dominate this conversation, by the way. So like,
oh, but you are the star here. You're the superstar here, obviously.
I'm just the dude.
You're the biggest. You're the biggest apologist channel, I think, in YouTube. But Hispanic philosophy is the number one, right? Apologist channel, probably.
Yeah, I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude with a mustache and brown skin.
I wanted you to shave the brows on your whole shaving stream.
Oh my gosh.
Well, yeah, but I think Than's main point earlier was that that mere number of occurrences in like a general classification genus is not going to be the only thing that's informing your background knowledge. Like it was less so about like the testimony of like the scientists, but more so that hey, like in abiogenesis you have 0 occurrences of that. With respect to our epistemic reach, of course you can hypothesize that it happens like in other planets or whatever, but as far as like epistemic reach to actual number of occurrences, it's 0, so the prior probability base rate of that would be tremendously low if we were just to consider that in isolation. But obviously, as we all know, that the vast majority of scientists accept abiogenesis, so there seems to be a lot more informing the background knowledge than just merely number of occurrences. So yeah.
And when it comes to the whole assigning numbers thing, these are just idealizations at the end of the day, right? Like, and that's totally fine. It's not actually problematic at the end of the day, right? This is why when we actually do these things, like if you look at how people like Paul Draper, right? If you've heard of Paul Draper, he's an agnostic philosopher. What you do is just kind of set upper and lower bounds if you need to, or you can just play the whole like, which part of Bayes just is bigger, right? Like if you put it in an odds form, you just do theism, atheism. So like one way that philosophers tend up doing it is the like way they want to actually assign the numbers. They'll just play the whole like which one's bigger kind of a thing. And there's so many ways to go about this. At the end of the day, the numbers are just placeholders to actually let you run the number, and they're just idealizations at the end of the day to represent the qualitative force of the evidence, right? If people want to dispute the 1 million versus 2 million, blah 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 blah, the answer is really simple. Okay, let's talk about it. Right? Like let's do the hard work then and do it.
Yeah, because the atheist is stuck with the exact same problem.
And this is Well, this is actually like one of my biggest pet peeves, believe it or not. Because like so often people are going to be like, well, how are you doing probabilities when you're doing history and blah 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 blah, and I'm just going to go like, dude, you're doing the same exact thing I am. Literally, you are doing the same exact thing I am. The only relevant difference is I am doing the excruciatingly hard work of laying out my thinking as explicitly and detailed as possible. And all of a sudden, like, I'm the bad guy for it. I'm not saying you're doing this, right? But at the end of the day, like, the typical response you get whenever you try to do like a Bayesian type of an argument, it's like, well, how are you doing probabilities? You don't have all this data, blah, blah,
Numbers
blah,
to
blah, blah.
history.
But then people, like, on the other side of the mouth, they're going to be like, but like, it's very obvious that like the probability that Jesus rose from the dead is really low. So it's like, can we do probability or can we not? Right. You get the point? It's like, it feels very rules for thee, not for me kind of like thing. And it's like, if you do a lot of hard work to put your thinking out there as explicitly as possible, you're also like in trouble too. It's like, well, what do you want me to do?
So I guess Steelman modern atheism case, because I actually agree with him a bit on the whole, like, I don't really like how probability is used. It's not so that we're like assigning probabilities at all. It's more so that we're assigning specific numbers to it. Like, I just don't see how you would assign, like, let's say a number of 60% or something like that to something. You can say something, oh, this is more probable, very probable, less probable, very improbable. I can understand that, right? But
so
it's just
what's going to be the difference between very improbable? Let's just use a sliding scale, right? Very improbable, improbable.
I feel like asking me to
call
assign
it 50-50, right? We'll call it probable and very probable. Like,
if you're asking me a percentage, I would just say that it's like a range of numbers.
Really quick, right? Because what I'm trying to say here is, let's just say very improbable is something like 4 times 10 to the negative 4th power to 10%, right? Or something like that, right? And then improbable is like 11% to 20%, and then you just keep on making these sliding scales, and then you can run your arithmetic by using the upper and lower bounds. Like, what's the difference going to be there at the end of the day?
Yes, I guess I see what you're going for, because I would just say like a very probable could be like a range of probabilities. So like it could be like, I don't know, 70 to 100, if you get what I mean, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then those are just your upper and lower bounds, and you run the math.
Yeah, that's fair. I can agree with that.
Yeah. Maybe I can try to illustrate this. For example, I think indeed, like Roy says, it is not so easy to go from very improbable to a number. For example, I will ask you this: what are the probabilities that tomorrow you're gonna have an accident and you're gonna break your leg? Okay, this is like, you know that it's very improbable. That's all you know. If you ask me, that's very improbable. But in what is the actual number in the order of magnitude? Is it 0.1%, 0.001, 0.0? I have no idea. I just know, I have an intuitive idea that's very improbable. It's not extremely improbable. Like, it could happen at some point in my life. It can definitely happen. But if you ask me out the top of your head, okay, give me a number. Dude, there is no way. I don't know what the number is. Like, what the odds that tomorrow I will break my leg? No, I have no idea. So it's very hard to go. Yeah.
So again, right? Because at the end of the day, at least for me, my claim is that the posterior probability of the resurrection is higher than any of the non-resurrection theories, right? So long as I can give an upper and lower bound that gets me there, it doesn't really matter what the numbers are, right?
Yes.
Just like, for instance, in your example, will you want to say like, well, what's the probability, right, that I'm going to get in an accident and break my legs? Well, if I'm just like given my data and the background evidence that I have, if you want to convince me to like not get in a car tomorrow, if you want to just say, hey, it's higher than and the rest of the theory, so you shouldn't get in the car, then cool, right? Like that's fine. I don't understand. Like, this is why I'm not really understanding what the point of the numbers complaint is, because I'm not terribly interested in whether or not the difference between the posterior is 80% or 90% for Christianity. I care about if on total probability, does Christianity or does resurrection occupy the majority of the probability space?
Let me ask you one small question. Do you think if we have a scenario where the probability of Christianity being true is 51%, and one scenario where it's 99.999%, do you think this is like the same? Because, okay, at the end of the day, it's more probable than those. Let's say we have one scenario, the probability, the posterior probability of Christianity being true is 51%, like just right above the probability line. But another scenario is now 99.9999%. So do you think this is like the same? Because you can say, oh, at the end of the day,
no, that doesn't work,
same, right?
Yeah, no, that doesn't work.
That's right.
Because then you would have 150 something percent.
No, no.
You can only have 100% of the probability space, right? Be like unless I'm missing what you're saying.
No. I think you're missing the point. Like according to some calculation, you have one person thinks the probabilities of Christianity being true is 51%. Like it is more likely than not being true, but just likely. But that person still thinks in the back of his mind, okay, there is a good probability that it could be false. And another person, for example, believes that Christianity has 99.99% of being true, like it's almost probably, it's almost surely to be true. The two things are not the same. You cannot say, okay, at the end of the day, it's just more likely than not, right?
Sure,
yeah.
But that's asking a different question, right? My claim at the end of the day is that that Christianity occupies the majority of the probability space.
Right.
That could be true. By the way, like that could be true, and the posterior probability is 30%. If you just have so many other counter hypotheses out there, and they all just occupy 10%, for instance, or whatever, then my claim is still true.
No, but you could still ask. You could have either Christianity is true or any of the alternatives is true, and at the end you do have a probability of 70% chance of being Christianity being false, even if it's the best one. Who says you can pick only one? I could pick, okay.
Yeah, I don't know which one. Be like mutually exclusive, logically exhaustive hypotheses, though. That's the problem, right?
So, but
the negation of Christianity is not the hypothesis, right?
Okay, I think okay, but why not? I mean, if the probability of Christianity being true is 30%, that means either Christianity is true or the conjunction of the other things. Either one of them is true. Either one of them.
But it's not a conjunction.
Why? Okay. Why? Okay. I think it would work like a conjunction in this scenario.
No, these are these would be disjunctive, right? You're gonna have let's just say it's like the I think the strongest like naturalistic hypothesis would be some sort of like a RHBS model, like the reburial hallucination, blah blah blah.
James Fodor, right? Okay. James Fodor.
I think that's probably gonna be the strongest one, right? But that's gonna not. But you can't have that be true and some other hypothesis that's logically and mutually exhaustive or like exclusive to that hypothesis, right? So these are disjunctive probabilities, not conjunctive. And so that's why I'm saying, well, you can have 30% of the probability space being occupied by Christianity if you just have all these other hypotheses, 7 other hypotheses that are disjunctive from each other, right? Because then they don't add up to 70%. They only are 10%.
Yeah. But as a skeptic, I'm not committed to any one specific. I could say either one. I'm happy. I'm winning if any one of them is true. So you know what I mean? Like you say, we have 20% hypothesis.
Yeah. The thing is, you just can't do that. You're adding in. You're taking the sum of the probabilities when these are disjuncts.
Yeah.
You can't do that. That would be breaking math.
Okay, I'm not sure why I can't do it, but okay. I don't.
Well, so like, let me just ask you this: if the probability that I'm trying to think of an analogy. Okay, I have protein muffins next to me. Okay, that's not going to work because these aren't truly disjunctive. But like, just pretend they are. Okay, I can only choose one flavor muffin. Okay, and I have blueberry, chocolate chip, birthday cake. Okay. I think that's what I got. Yeah. Okay. Just work with that. Okay. And I think that the probability that I'm going to choose chocolate chip is higher than the rest. Right. Well, you can't then just go. So let's just say it's 40%, and the other ones are whatever the math adds up to for the other two, right?
60%.
What?
It will add to 60% or
yeah,
not?
60%. So then like 30% for each of the other ones, right?
Right. Yes, that's good example.
Well, you can't just say, well, the probability that you're gonna not choose chocolate chip is higher than the probability that you're going to choose chocolate chip, because that does not actually represent which flavor I'm actually going to pick if I can only pick one.
Okay,
right?
okay.
The probability that I'm going to pick
True.
cake or blueberry is 30%, but that's a disjunct, not a conjunct.
Yeah.
If it's a conjunct, it's I'm going to pick blueberry and the other flavor, but I can only pick one.
Right.
In the same way, if you have a naturalistic hypothesis, but you can only pick one of these naturalistic hypotheses, then it's a disjunct and you can't pick two. That's like saying, hey, well, the probability that the RHBS model is like 20%, but also this other model that like could be true, but like can't be true at the same time as the RHBS model. I'm going to count that probability, even though that's not actually contained, right? RHBS doesn't actually absorb the probability of this other hypothesis, the disjunct. That's why I'm saying it doesn't really matter, because you're counting stuff in places that you shouldn't be.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. But I mean, one could still say, obviously, that the probability that you're going to pick a flavor other than chocolate chips is 60%, right? But you will say, but I would say, for example, here, let's say the probability of RHBS is 20%, and the probability of a conspiracy, for example, is 10%. If I don't commit myself to any of them,
10%, sorry?
A conspiracy, for example, just to give an example, a conspiracy, a real conspiracy, Roman conspiracy.
Yeah, so then, but hold on, at that point, then you don't have the RHBS model or the conspiracy theory model, right? That's a completely different hypothesis.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah, that's the point. But as a skeptic, I could say, I am open. It happened in a naturalistic way, either A or B. I could take both, and both I am fine with both. So I could say as a skeptic, either A, naturalistic A happen, or naturalistic B happen, and I'm fine with both. So I could add the probabilities, because in a skeptic I could do that.
Again, if those two hypotheses are mutually exclusive, they can't both be true at the same time. You do not add up those probabilities. That's the problem at the end of the day. So you can't just go A or B. I mean, you can't go A and B. You have to say A or B, and then you have to go, okay, is the posterior for A higher than the posterior for the resurrection? If no, then the posterior probability for the resurrection is still higher. If it's B and the posterior is still lower than the resurrection, then the posterior for the resurrection is still higher. Yeah. But if you have a conjunction where you have hypothesis A and hypothesis B, my point here is, well, that's not two separate hypotheses now. You're actually going to put them together into a different big hypothesis. And then you're actually going to have to take into account the priors again and all this other stuff. And I'm going to argue, well, okay, just because you have A and B and you formed a new hypothesis, the posterior doesn't magically conjunct together. Now you have to deal with priors, and you have to actually like re-embark into the likelihood assessments again, because now you're going to have to re-go through everything and figure out how do these two hypotheses as one hypothesis actually explain the data together? How complicated is it? How ad hoc is it? Blah, 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 blah. And so it's not just as simple as adding A and B together if they're not mutually exclusive. But you cannot, if they are mutually exclusive, add the posteriors together.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If you don't mind me asking, Than, because I'm also trying to learn this whole like conjunctive and disjunctive probability stuff. But like, say for example, mythicism and the reburial hypothesis, we cannot like. I mean, sure, we can probably say the probability of the resurrection not happening is represented by this, but it actually doesn't do any explaining, is basically what you're saying, because like you can't like conjoin
say that one more time, sorry.
Like mythicism combined with the reburial hypothesis, you can represent that as like not resurrection, but not resurrection as a hypothesis doesn't do any explaining.
Yeah, not
because-
resurrection is not a hypothesis.
Yeah. Because like you would have to like conjoin like all of the different like naturalistic hypotheses, which are like logically and mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
And yeah, those don't do any explaining. To actually get the explanatory power, you have to go into each individual hypothesis.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let
okay.
me qualify what I said. When I say not resurrection is not a hypothesis, what I'm really saying there is not resurrection isn't actually explaining anything, like you just said, right? And so you might just have a high prior for that hypothesis, but like saying Jesus didn't rise from the dead isn't actually explaining any data, right? That's the problem. And any potential explanatory route you take starts forming disjuncts.
Yeah, that definitely helps for me. What about you, Modern? Do you think you get it?
Yeah, but it's still I don't get why we see things differently. It seems very clear to me that according to normal language, I can say okay, either Jesus was invented, mythicism, or there was a reburial and hallucinations. I think either one of those two things happened. I'm not sure which one actually happened, but I think it's either one of those two. And if this has 20%, and this has 20%, and I say, okay, either one of those two happened, that's my hypothesis, that either one of those hypotheses are or, then my hypothesis becomes a 40%, which will win over that 30%, for example. I think
it doesn't. It's a disjunct. Okay, let me ask you this really quickly, okay? This might help, okay? My Bayesian Islamic dilemma is coming out. If you're not familiar with the Islamic dilemma, it's just basically like the Quran endorses the Torah and the gospel, right? And the Torah and the gospel contradict the Quran. So are the gospels and the Torah corrupted or are they not corrupted, right? And if the Muslim wants to say, okay, well, they're corrupted, right? And they want to say that the probability of corruption is 20% or something like that, right? They can't go, well, also, by the way, like the probability of it not being corrupted is 20%. And therefore, now the probability that the Islamic dilemma doesn't work is 40%. They can't add these two logically contradictory hypotheses together, right, to equal 40%. They're taking different disjunctive explanatory routes, and so therefore they can't add up the probabilities because they are literally imposing two different hypotheses. So the sub routes that you take within the explanatory network that you're attempting to put up just forbid adding the probabilities together.
Yeah.
Versus like if it was conjunctive, you could do that.
But yeah, and if it is conjunctive, what all you're really doing then is not adding the probabilities, you're adding the hypotheses together. And then that opens up a can of worms as to, okay, how do you go about adding those two hypotheses together in order to get a new posterior? It's not as simple as putting together those two posterior probabilities, because again, you're going to take just even minimally speaking, you're going to take a hit on simplicity because you have way more propositions when you do the conjunct now, right? Because remember, your posterior, right, is going to be the prior times the Bayes factor. If you have more propositions in your hypothesis, which you necessarily will have if you have a conjunction of two hypotheses, right, then you're going to take a hit on the prior, which means necessarily you're going to take a hit in some capacity in the posterior. And that's just like one reason to think that it's not that simple, even if you can't conjunct them.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fan, I had a question about the whole more propositions thing. Doesn't every hypothesis have infinite propositions, just the fact that you can infinitely combine and recombine propositions together?
You're cutting
like
in and out.
Yeah.
I think I don't get the whole more propositions means it's more complex, because if you think about it, you can combine and recombine propositions together. So like if you have P and Q, you can do P and Q. That's a new proposition. Let's just call it R. Then you can do R and P, or you can do R and Q, and you can just infinitely combine propositions ad infinitum. And it seems that every hypothesis is going to have infinite propositions at the end of the day.
Yeah, but which of those propositions are actually producing some sort of explanatory power is the question, right?
Okay.
So it's not just it's like, and we have to be careful too not to confuse worldviews with hypotheses.
Like, is it like the recombination propositions, the one made out of recombination? They're not like new propositions that actually do any explanatory work. It's just that they're recombinations of other propositions already in the world in the hypothesis.
Yeah, but then what you're actually doing is collapsing submodels into together, right? So like if you just have not R as the hypothesis, that's not doing any explanation, right? So then you can have not R sub 1, and it would be the RHBS model or something like that, right?
Okay.
And let's just say not R sub 2, which would be conspiracy theory, and maybe you want to say, okay, well, let's combine those two. Well, I'm just going to say, well, that's not R sub 1-2 or something like that. And the propositions in the conspiracy theory and the propositions in the RHBS are now put together. But that hypothesis now is not going to be as simple as not R dash like sub 1 and not R dash 2 sub 2 by themselves.
Well, so just for me, can I ask a question right quick?
Yeah. And again, please, like, other people cut me off and like jump in. I don't like being
well, so I just
you said you don't like being here?
No, I said I don't like being the only person like.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Going at it, I feel bad.
So are you defining posterior probability with respect to the prior probability and new introduction of evidence? Like, I don't understand how you're defining posterior right now.
Yeah. So if we just like for context, right? Like I'm just assuming we're using the odds form of Bayes here as I'm talking to modern atheism. And the posterior probability is just going to be a ratio of the priors multiplied by the ratio of the evidence given the hypotheses or the Bayes factor.
If I can say something real quick, the prior is the probability of your explanation just giving background knowledge. That's what the prior looks at, and the posterior looks at the specific evidence for the thing, like the background knowledge. What are the odds that a man would resurrect from the dead? Right, alone it seems low, but then you will add some evidence like this specific testimony, and then we will increase the posterior. If that's
the posterior, sorry, the posterior is the output. So it's you have priors, and you have the likelihood ratio or your Bayes factor, depending on how you want to word stuff, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're just referring, so you're using Bayesian inference as your paradigm right now, right? I mean, you're basically working with Bayesian inference. All right. So I'm a mathematician. I'm not a statistician. But I just wanted to understand where you're coming from. And I've only been listening to about 10 minutes of this, and you've been defining terms and not actually like stating what probabilities you're actually assigning to events. So I don't know if you could catch me up, but so we're talking about the probability that Christ resurrected. Are you an atheist or are you a believer?
I'm a believer.
Excellent. So how are you? So even using Bayesian inference, you have to be able to. So the only way you can actually ever assign probability is through experimentation. You can't just pull a probability out of the air and say, this is the probability, right? So where do you...
Yeah, we covered this a little bit. So
yeah, I didn't hear it. So
no, I'm not faulting you for that. I'm not faulting you for that at all. But
so
maybe
I apologize if I'm asking questions that have already been answered. I'm just trying to catch up with the conversation because I find this interesting, though I don't find it persuasive in any way.
By the way,
I totally. I have run into mathematician and math like Apollos. You've seen this a ton. You run into statisticians and people that work in math all the time that have the exact same worry that you do. Apollo, I can't tell if you're frozen or if you're just like, okay, there you are. You're just like sitting still, dude.
No, I was just waiting for you to finish your question.
Yeah. So like maybe Apollos wants to answer, if you want to.
Well, just to give you a little bit of basis for me, I actually work in applied cryptography, so my math is set theory and combinatorics. It's nothing related to what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. What I would say is that like Bayesian inference can still apply even in like less ideal scales of like assigning probabilities. So say for example like ordinal scales, and I kind of went over it in my debate against PhD Tony, which unfortunately no longer is public access, but yeah, Modern Day Debate made it members only.
We have a
for
review of
accessing
it
that
that
debate.
goes over. Yeah, we have a review that goes over though, so there's still like a way to understand what happened.
Yeah. My PowerPoint would work correctly.
Oh yeah, and he has like
but,
a 600 slide PowerPoint for some reason.
What? If you guys have work on this subject, I'd love to read it. Like if you could just throw links in the chat.
I would if you want to read on this, I would highly recommend reading the work of Nevin Klimenhaga. He's a philosopher of probability. Because the worry that you have, I think, stems from one of many assumptions that I think people have when it comes into this topic, which is like, for instance, going to be like, well, the only way you can work within the realm of probability is like through like statistical frequency. And generally speaking, like there's going to be three main types of probability. One is going to be statistical probability, right? So like, what are the occurrences of a particular event within a reference class given a sample size, kind of a thing. There's going to be physical probability, which is like to what degree do some antecedent states of affairs make the later than states of affairs likely. And then there's going to be epistemic probability, which is like the degree to which one proposition supports another proposition. And so like we can engage in probabilistic thinking and we do all the time. There you go.
Yeah.
I'll let Apollo.
Yeah, like we do it in climate science. And I realized like in the debate that I had with PhD Tony, he didn't actually like formalize the statistical probability that, say for example, a 1 in 100-year flood event or some sort of like event would occur. He just said that, oh, if I get this like reference class and take this probability calculus and try to retroactively apply it to my question, then I could get some sort of like formalization. But he didn't actually give me the formalization. We also see it in like political science. Ordinal probabilities, that's probabilities with respect to not having like equal intervals between your numbers. So something like low probability, high probability, impossible versus certain. You can play around with like wherever the cutoffs for those are, and yet they still use those sorts of like ordinal probability scales.
I get that. My simple question is that a believer is going to say the probability that Christ resurrected is 1.
Oh, that's
an
it.
Atheist, yeah. An atheist is going to say the probability that Christ resurrected is 0. And so what I don't get, the part of this math that I don't get, is how you guys are assigning probabilities to events and then applying them posterior to the prior.
Posterior to the prior.
So we all start with a prior. We all start with
okay. So is the worry about the problem of the priors?
So start from 2 priors. There can only be 2 priors, 1 and 0, right? So you guys are adding evidence. You guys are adding likelihoods to what becomes a posterior probability, right? That is, I don't know, somehow arguing against either prior. And I don't understand how you guys I don't understand how those conclusions are come to.
Yeah, okay.
Well, the same way you'd come to conclusions about who would like win like an election, more than just off of a simple reference class. Like you would make assumptions based off of background knowledge given this piece of evidence and so on and so forth.
Well, but I can do polling, and I can do and during at the election I can do exit polls. So I have a basis to apply data to the current proposition, right?
Yeah. But my point is that data, even though you can put that within a formalization, that formalization isn't the formalization of your output.
Right.
And so like you can have like these data and still have it count as like, because we have the same thing for the resurrection, right? Like we have manuscripts, we have testimonies, we have like historical reportage model and stuff like that.
I think he's I think Random Catholic. Tell me if I'm wrong here. Are you just talking about the problem of the priors? Because it sounds like what? Say what?
It's not just the problem of the priors. It's how do you assign weight?
Okay,
to each of your evidences, right?
We're gonna have to take like we're gonna have to take it question by question, right?
Right. No, I got it.
So if it's just the problem of the priors, like there's a really easy solution to that, which is just let's just run the numbers multiple times. Right.
Well, but each of the priors is absolute. How do you argue against an absolute prior?
What do you mean it's absolute?
Each of the priors is absolute. It's either 0 or it's 1. There is for each of the priors there is no in between. There is only 0 and there is only 1.
That's not true. Because again, what you're working off of is it almost sounds well, there's a few things that could be happening here. But what you're working off of, like minimally speaking, would just be like statistical probability, right? Either Jesus rose from the dead or he did not, right? For the prior probability. So you're saying it's either 0 or 1, right?
Well, what I'm saying is the argument for either prior is going to be a statement of faith, right? It's going to be you either believe that Jesus resurrected.
What do you mean by statement of faith?
So for we the believers, right? Christ's resurrection is a matter of divine revelation. It's not a matter of natural theology, right?
Yeah, then I would ask, like, what do you mean by belief? Because, like, I could say that, like,
I don't even think you need to. Yeah, I don't think that actually answers the question. Sorry if that's blunt, but like, I like Bayesian epistemology can be put in terms of like degrees of belief, right? Or it could just be in terms of degrees of support, right? And so the prior probability of the resurrection, for instance, could just be a conditional prior on our background knowledge, right? And so if we just come into the discussion with different sets of background knowledge, I might just go like, hey, well, you are an atheist. I'm a theist. For the sake of discussion, if I'm going to investigate what the posterior is for the resurrection, we might say something like conditional on theism. I might say that the prior probability of the resurrection for these reasons here could be a conditional prior of point whatever, right? And you as the atheist can have a conditional prior of 0.0001 or whatever, right? And then we just have an upper and lower bound that we can run the numbers through.
Right, but see, my problem with this system is that believers are going to say the probability is 1, non-believers are going to say the probability is 0.
No, they're not. I'm a believer who doesn't say that the prior probability of the resurrection is 1.
Same. Although I may give my life in such a way that is consistent with the probability that's 1. I don't actually think the probability is like 1.
Yeah. And you kind of confuse prior with posterior, you know?
Yeah.
Posterior and prior are different. You are like, when you say probability, you're talking about the posterior, but we were talking to the prior. And just one little thing. You say that the only way to assign priors was through experimentations, but there is another way. You can observe the frequency in the world. Like, what is the odds of, for example, a car crashing? For example, you don't do experiments. You can also look at the statistic of the world, what happens, and from this statistics, you know, okay, what are the odds of this happening, or the prior probability that you will crash, for example, in your car. There is a number for that, actually. This comes from frequency in the world, observed on observations.
Well, just for my own edification, right? From what I understand, and I am no expert in Bayesian inference, right? Don't get me wrong, right? But from what I understand, all right, you start with a prior, right, and then you develop a set of posteriors as you go through experimentation, incorporating new evidence, and now the new posterior probability represents a compromise between what you initially believed, the prior, and observed evidence that you have applied, which now becomes the posterior.
No, this isn't. Apollos, can you pull up the odds form of Bayes?
Can I give you an example? Maybe this will help you clarify it. For example, let's see an observation. This is our observation. A person is missing. This is just the data that we have to explain. Now, what is one possible explanation? Is that this person was unalive, was murdered, for example. That is one possibility. That is just one of the many possibilities. You know, there are other explanations. For example, it just decided to leave town. But one possibility is that the person was killed. Now, what is the prior probability of, we know that a person is missing. What is the prior probability of being killed? Okay, generally, very broadly, one will look at statistics of murders. How frequent are murders? So that will give us a prior. So if we know that a person is missing, how often does this happen because of a murder? That this will give us a prior of a murder. The hypothesis of a murder now has a prior. Let's say 5%. And the 5% of cases, a person is missing because of a murder. But now, let's say we find one additional evidence. We find clothes with blood, and we find a knife. Now, this is evidence that we assign to this, and now it becomes a posterior. With this evidence, our posterior probability just increase. The prior was just the base level of statistically. But now, when we look at specific evidence that the person might have been killed, now the posterior increases. Is it maybe, does this explain it maybe? Does this help?
That does, yeah. I just remember the math I do deals in absolutes. It doesn't deal in probabilities.
Yeah, that's why I was saying, like, this is a typical hiccup when you're dealing with status. Like, anybody that deals with probability in general in an absolute sense in a professional way, philosophy of probability gets really, 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 like, it's way bigger than people realize, is what I'm trying to say here.
Many years ago, I actually wrote models for derivative instruments, like back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm dating myself, I'm sorry, right? But this was kind of new math back then, and we were like, I don't know how much you know about options pricing, but if you go from, like, you know, what was the Black-Scholes model to something like using heat diffusion equations to determine volatility spreads for option matrices, right? Is there a way that, because what I don't see in the explanation that I've been given is any way to rationally assign probabilities to events to provide a piece of likelihood data. Like what you're trying to do is provide likelihood data to
random
update. Go ahead.
Let me just ask you this, okay? Do you engage in probabilistic thinking implicitly?
Everybody does.
Yeah. Okay. This is literally all we're doing here. In the simplest way, like to break this down, is we're doing this. If the hiccup is just how do you assign the numbers, right? Well, these are just going to be, again, idealizations to give us something to work with. But these are just idealizations of the qualitative force of the evidence, or the qualitative force of our background knowledge and stuff like that. This is why people establish upper and lower bounds, and all this other stuff. But again, this is just. There's so many questions that you're asking, and I'm just trying to figure out, like, what the best way to approach this from is. But, like, even some of the language here just is a little confusing, because Apollos brought up the odds form of Bayes, right? But like Bayesian reasoning is just going to be a rhythm, there's that highlighted portion, right? We want to figure out what the posterior odds are. So to figure out the posterior odds, we have the ratio of the prior odds. We multiply that by the likelihood ratio. That is answering the question is, what is the probability of the evidence given hypothesis 1 in our background knowledge over the probability of the evidence given hypothesis 2 in our background knowledge, right? That likelihood ratio gives us something called the Bayes factor. So we multiply the ratio of the priors by the Bayes factor. That is our posterior. And then we go from that new posterior. That's going to be a ratio. That's going to be our new prior odds ratio. Get some new evidence, new Bayes factor, rinse and repeat, right?
I think that's exactly what I said. I just said it in very layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys said no, and then brought up that formula on the screen, right?
Well,
but I'm pretty sure I said exactly that.
Okay, I may have misheard you, because I heard you get a bunch of posteriors and you add that with the prior.
No. So you start with a prior, right? You find some evidence, you create a likelihood ratio, right? You apply that likelihood ratio to the previous prior, that creates a new posterior, and then you find more evidence.
We're on board. So
you find more evidence. Okay, the hang up for me, right, is empiricism. There doesn't appear to be any empirical basis for assigning the ratio to your measure of likelihood for the new evidence. So
what do you think I think the prior is for the resurrection?
Christ resurrected, or Christ did not resurrect. And again, I'm saying if we're going to start from so
the problem there is you're only working within the realm of frequency at that point. But frequency is not the only type of probability.
No, I totally get that. I just, if you're going to have this conversation with someone, and I'm gonna dip back to this because I think I'm just misunderstanding. I should listen more, right? But if you're starting from a first principle for this argument, right? A believer who has divine revelation is going to believe that Christ resurrected with probability 1. An atheist,
I don't. I'm a believer. I don't think that the probability that Jesus rose from the dead is 1.
Mike Licona says it's like 85%. So even many believers say it's lower than 100%,
So here's the thing, Random Catholic. I think you're confusing the believer's hope in the resurrection, because we know from, as a Christians, from divine revelation, we know Christ rose from the dead. We know all this. But this Bayesian, and I'm not great at it either, but this Bayesian analysis is a specific kind of way to argue for the resurrection. And so they wouldn't, if you're doing that, if you're trying to argue for the resurrection, you're not just going to assume the resurrection and then say, yeah, the resurrection is true. This is a way to try to argue that the resurrection is the best explanation of all the evidence. So I think you're confusing those two things.
I am. And so let me ask this question. And I'm going to apply a term here that isn't mathematical or professional. Do you have a timeline of inferences? So do you have where you started with the prior, and as you developed evidence to create a new posterior, and that becomes the prior, and then you develop new evidence to create a new posterior, do you have a set of data that shows those likelihood ratios and how they have affected the current probability ratio that is your current prior?
Yeah, it all depends on who you're talking to at the end of the day. If I'm talking to another theist who's not a Christian, right? Well, me and the theist are going to have in our background knowledge all the evidence for theism, right? But if I'm talking to an atheist, well, then we're going to, modern atheism, right? He might disagree with my background knowledge, and he's going to have different background knowledge on theism. So what we're going to have to do is use conditional priors. And so I do have a total data set that I think is relevant, but that total data set is huge, right? It spans all the way from fine-tuning data to the historical evidence for the resurrection to the way I approach theodicy, to the good Christianity has done for the world, to modern day miracles. I mean, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on, right? And so you model this out depending on who you're talking to. You conditionalize on priors where you need to, and you look at the data that you need to.
Well,
Let me ask you.
let me just ask one super simple basic question. If I were to try to apply the statistics that you guys, the statistical model that you guys have created, if I were to try to apply that as a form of evangelism, I'm trying to get the guy whose prior ratio is 0 to get closer to a posterior ratio of 1. So if I were going to try as a layperson, as a catechist, as an evangelist, if I were going to try to argue that person into belief in the resurrection, how would I go about that based on the statistical model that you guys are presenting? So use this as a tool.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Explain this as a tool for evangelism.
I do it all the time.
So I would be really interested in that.
Yeah. Okay. If you're the atheist and the atheist layman, I'm just going to go like, hey, I think that the resurrection is more probable than not. And I'm going to go, so here are some reasons why I think the Gospels are historically reliable, blah, 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 blah. We get 21 unique eyewitnesses that are multimodal in nature, multisensory. We have no good reasons for thinking that like they would make this stuff up. We have an empty tomb, blah, blah, blah. You get the point, right? And I'm just going to go, hey, I think that the probability that you would have like all of this evidence if Jesus rose from the dead is really, really, really high. And I think that the probability of all this evidence being there if like people hallucinated is really, really, really low. And so, you know, hey, I get you're an atheist, but just work with me here. Because, let's just put this on the table, because most modern day atheists that are laymen are going to define atheism as a lack of belief, not a belief that God doesn't exist, right? So I'm just going to go, hey, well, let's just kind of meet in the middle, right? You lack a belief in God. I have a belief in God. Maybe I'll be nice and let's just say like, hey, let's just say it's like maybe a 30% probability God exists, right? We won't even call it a wash, even though you just lack a belief. Well, it seems like, you know, it seems like the evidence really supports that Jesus rose from the dead. Do you have a theory that would like make more sense of this data?
Well, I mean, a spittle flecking, oh my God, I'm ossified in my atheism atheist is going to say resurrection is impossible, ergo ratio 0.
Yeah, but he still has to explain the data.
And then the answer to that's really simple. Okay, what's the contradiction?
Well, so I'm not gonna argue with you as an atheist because I'm not one, right? So you know.
Yeah. Well, the main like you kind of proved my point though, right? Because it's like actually engaging in this probabilistic thinking with the atheist is fairly simple, and the like we both just have to deal with the same problems, which is they're going to have objections that we both have to deal with. And it's just that my model just has tons of tools that lets me engage with the objections that they would have.
Well, so from an evangelism perspective, right? And you say that even your probability ratio for Christ resurrecting is not 1, right? However, as a believer, because I have received divine revelation, or I believe I've received divine revelation, I can't prove it, right? Because it's divine revelation. I believe that the probability that Christ resurrected is 1. So how do I, as an evangelist, bring you as a mathematician closer to the receipt of divine revelation, which would require your probability rate, your likelihood ratio to be 1?
I don't think you'll ever get me there, because I think that probabilities of 0 or 1 are reserved for places where there's logical contradiction.
They're reserved for divine revelation as well. That's sort of the point, right?
Well, I mean, like, yeah, but I can have I could have something that I can have an experience that I've interpreted as divine revelation, but there's not going to be a contradiction in that experience not being actual divine revelation. Just in the same way, like I'm having an experience that I'm touching something physical right now, right? But that's still an inference that I'm making that this is a physical thing and I'm not a brain in a vat.
Well, and you're actually not touching it. The magnetic fields exist between your fingers and the object that are preventing you from actually making contact. Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, if you want to talk about if you want to talk about how the sense of touch works, we can do that too. But again, that
doesn't really disprove my point, right?
Right, but again, for 99% of the people that I'm going to be talking to about the resurrection of Christ, they don't understand.
I don't tell 99. I've been doing this for a while, and I have told many people. I've never had an issue with this. Say for some fideists and some pre-suppers, that the posterior is just not going to be one, and that's okay.
I think this might just be an issue between Thomistic epistemology and Dan's epistemology, because to explain this, right, when we say a probability of one, where we have certainty on the resurrection, that would be after an assent of faith, because okay, I guess to help explain this to Than, who's more acquainted.
Oh no, I'm familiar with Thomistic epistemology.
Okay, but you know, like how Plantinga talks about how beliefs are properly basic, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and how Christianity is properly basic.
Yeah, no, I totally get it, right?
Yeah, that's what he's kind of talking about, basically there.
Right, but
if you look at my icon, if you look at the icon I have on the screen, it's literally Saint Thomas and Saint Michael doing
I
a
understand.
program,
I understand, right? But that's a totally different question than how do you just engage in the non-believer?
I think the question is, how do you get the non-believer to get to that same level of probability where how does the believer understand that Christianity being true is properly basic and not just derived via inference?
I don't try to get them there.
So here's my actual question, right? I can't walk up to somebody and give him Aquinas' 5 ways and say, now you should believe in Christ, right? That's just never a conversation that's ever going to go well for me, right? So in my daily life, I am looking for new ways to evangelize. And I saw you guys talking about this, and as a mathematician, it sort of tickled my brain. And if there are some concepts in here that I could use for evangelization, I would like to learn them so I can use them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I would highly endorse looking, if you want to start somewhere, Richard Swinburne, where I have his book somewhere around here. This is the must read. My camera's reversed. It's The Existence of God by Richard Swinburne. Make sure you get the 2nd edition. It's a must read if you want to engage in this type of reasoning and start thinking in this kind of a way. I'll tell you this in my own anecdotal experience. It's far more effective than the deductive argument route. Because the claims are way more modest, and humans are wired to think in a Bayesian way, right? Bayesianism is really just going to be an explicit formulation of the way we implicitly think anyway. And yeah.
Well, anecdotally for me, I have actually made the argument of uncaused cause and unexplained explainer to people, and you see a light go on in their head, right? So, I mean, the argument for me that works best for talking to non-believers is literally uncaused cause and unexplained explanation, right? And I don't know if you're familiar with Thomist thought on the matter.
I am.
Right? So for those who are resistant to that particular argument, their epistemology no longer applies, because that is the end game of epistemological argument for God, right? There is no other end game, right? So epistemology goes out the window. So how do I now talk to a person who's a non-believer without epistemology?
Are you saying if they reject the notion of an uncaused cause, epistemology goes out the window?
Epistemology goes out the window. You can no longer argue from an epistemological perspective. Like they refuse to know. If they refuse to know, then epistemology doesn't work.
Random Catholic, are you talking about just like a stubborn, just someone so stubborn that no matter what evidence or argument you give, they're just not gonna budge?
Someone who is ossified, yes.
Yeah, at that point, I don't think I can give you advice to say, hey, you can use this argument, because they're not gonna budge.
Yeah, at that point, we're just in the same boat.
Well, but you're not. I'm not really looking for them. I'm not really looking for them to budge. I am looking to plant a seed. The parable of the mustard seed. I am looking to plant a seed.
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I find in my experience, this type of reasoning that I employ is actually even better when it comes to the ossified person, because it's not as threatening. Like, if you have a big deductive argument that you're going to give somebody, like, and it just has this conclusion that God exists necessarily and all this other stuff, right? Like, that's a way harder bullet to bite to the ossified person than the bullet of, yeah, I think that would be like probability raising data.
At the end of the day, Random Catholic, you don't plant the seed by doing a Bayesian analysis of the resurrection. You plant the seed by telling them the gospel.
Yeah.
Amen. Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
By the way, Random Catholic, are you on? I think I recognize your voice. Are you on the Discord server for Imago Logos?
No, I'm in Catholic Exiles, which someone posted it. Someone posted a link to this in Catholic Exiles. I was like, hey, I think I'll go check that out and see what that's all about.
Are you the same name?
Yeah, Random Catholic. Yeah, I'm that guy.
Oh, okay. Nice.
I'm the guy who's writing a book about the Psalms. That's me. I'm that guy.
Okay. I think you should, if you want to like learn more about probability theory stuff, join the Imago Logos server and then join Inspiring Philosophy. We are both me and Than are often in voice chat in either server, I guess.
Yeah, dump the link. Can you dump the link in the private chat and
I can just DM it to you actually. Hold on. Or
I'll put the link for the IP Discord in the chat.
Yeah, and I'm gonna dip. I did not mean to derail you guys' conversation like that.
Oh, you're good, man. I'm just chilling.
All right. I'm trying to come at this from a much more fundamental and basic level and try to understand first principles for the system you guys have built, because really you built a system, right? Whether you realize it or not.
Well, I didn't. I'm piggyback. I'm using the systems that philosophers and experts in probability.
Yeah, you are standing on the shoulders of giants. However, you are describing a system, right? And you are attempting to use that system to justify belief in a particular event, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a particular outcome. So you have I don't want to say it's a bias, right? But you have a particular outcome that you are trying to prove for, and you are trying to prevent people from using your same system to prove against.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't like the way that's worded, but I
don't have another way to word it. I'm not.
I can provide you some better wording. You could just say something like, there is a system of inferences that I employ, and when I employ that system of inferences within the safety cones of avoiding the fallacies, the multiple fallacies that you can, right, when you're using this type of reasoning,
right,
and you take into account on total data, I have a conclusion that I've reached, and I'm trying to show people that they can reach that same conclusion if they avoid the fallacies and bad chains of reasoning, right? The same exact thing that you would do, right? Like if you give a deterministic argument, there's deductive like just like in deductive style arguments, right? Like there's fallacies that you want to avoid, and you can point those out when people engage in bad reasoning, right? It's the same exact thing when it comes to Bayesian reasoning. It's just a different type of reasoning than people are used to in explicit ways.
And again, I did not mean to say something that sounded pejorative.
I know you didn't. I know you didn't.
That wasn't what I was trying to do, right? But me personally, I have a very fundamental argument against trying to apply this kind of statistical wow, nounophagia sucks sometimes, right? But this kind of statistical reasoning to believe in divine revelation, but that's a topic. That's a whole nother topic for another day, right? So I'm gonna dip and let you guys talk and join the Discord server and
I
get
sent
more
you
information.
I
Right.
sent you a friend request, and I think someone else sent you a link as well.
Right.
I put it in the private chat for the IP Discord server.
Yeah, and I appreciate your hospitality. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, by the way,
No worries. Have a good one, Random.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way,
No, I was gonna ask this fan. Don't worry.
Oh,
okay.
no, I was
Yeah.
okay. Well, he's gone. I was going to ask something to Tan about something that he said. I thought maybe he was interested, but in hearing this, but whatever. Here is my question, Tan. At some point, he says something that could be interesting. See, like the exact numbers for those likelihood ratios. Sometimes it's not clear where they come from. Let me give you one specific example from your blog post on this, what Apologia criticized. For example, when we were talking about Paul was a skeptic and converted, and you say, or James, and you say the probability of a skeptic converting under the hypothesis that the resurrection is false, right? You say that this is low, right? For example, let's say you say 1% or 2%. My question is this 1% or 2% or whatever number you have, is this just based like on a general intuition from your background knowledge that you're trying to assign a number to it, or do you have actually some concrete?
So, I sent you a paper a long while ago. I don't remember when I did this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and how to actually kind of come to this. But the basic idea is like I hold to a system called Bayesian explanationism, and the basic idea is like, here's the bird's eye view, right? The way to assess the likelihood ratio, like part of it's just going to be basic abductive reasoning, right? You're going to have some like theoretical virtues of the hypothesis, and you're going to ask questions about like how likely it's going to make the hypothesis. And again, these are just upper and lower bounds that you can put on as well. So again, we engage in the same exact type of reasoning, right? Like there just is like the objection of like, how do you assign the numbers doesn't actually like do anything, because at the end of the day, you're doing the same thing I am. I'm just making some things explicit, right? I like at the end of the day, me assigning an upper and lower bound to the numbers is just making my thinking explicit. And if you disagree, that's fine. Let's talk about it. That's all I'm gonna say there, right?
Sure.
Because you're still doing that thing implicitly. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, like, as far as like the numbers are concerned, like I think it's less about the numbers exactly this, but it's more so like for the argument to work, the number would have to be this.
Yes.
Or these sets of numbers would generate a situation where the argument would work. So
okay.
Yeah.
But here's
so like
my
Thane isn't committed to like a certain like likelihood ratio
Okay.
per se.
Sure. But you do have to use a number to put it in the equation, right? I mean, it could be an upper or lower bound, like Tan says, right? Instead of one specific number. Like, but still you have to, like, ultimately you do have to get to some kind of number. Here's the thing. I don't remember from your blog post what was the final probability of Jesus rising from the dead. I think it was 99.8% or something.
Yeah, well, again, I'm going to say this again because sorry if I sound frustrated here, but it's again, that blog post is not my actual numbers. I'm using different numbers just to point to the structure of the argument.
Okay.
And that's it. Like I say that multiple times in the blog post. I don't know why people are, it's mainly from the skeptic community that are like, okay, well, what about these numbers and these numbers? And I'm just like, dude, time and time again, I'm saying like, this isn't the full-fledged argument for the resurrection. I'm just outlining the structure of reasoning so that way we can get past the whole "for the Bible tells me so" nonsense, right?
Yeah.
Well, so again, I just came back to clarify my question, right? So I understand enough statistics to know about like confidence intervals and things like that, right? So would it be do you apply margins of error to create confidence intervals for numbers that you assign to likelihood ratios?
You can, yeah. That's a tool
Would
you
that
can employ.
would that be a better way to have the argument? So the probability of something is simply a point estimate plus or minus the margin of error, right? So you're trying to find the true value of a thing, right?
Well, again, you're only working, you're thinking within the paradigm of base rates again, though, right?
Yeah, that's all I have really from my own personal study of statistics. It's very undergrad level. It's not. I don't have a.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, there's more types of probability out there than just statistical probability, right? There's statistical probability, there's physical probability, and there's epistemic probability.
Yeah, I'm gonna go read on that. So I'm again. I don't want to frustrate you, right?
I'm not frustrated.
I have a very.
I only get frustrated when I feel like I'm repeating myself ad nauseum. That's all.
Well, I have a very undergraduate.
I don't want you to feel like that's towards you.
No. It's just I personally have I have a very undergraduate understanding of statistics. I don't have a graduate level understanding of what it is you guys are talking about. My math is a totally different math that deals in discrete values and absolutes. It doesn't deal with probability at all.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I would really suggest. I bet you I could just find it really quick. Give me 1 sec here.
Yeah, a primer would be nice.
Here's a paper that I would recommend reading.
Where are you going to post this in the side chat?
Put it in the private chat.
And I might go check that out too, actually.
This paper I just gave you is the structure of epistemic probabilities. That's the title of it.
Right. Well, I don't ever want to talk to you again until I know more. So I'm going to avoid you at all costs.
This is part of the problem of like the source of frustration for me when it comes to a lot of this stuff sometimes is I understand completely that most people don't have like a working knowledge of a lot of this philosophy of probability stuff. The frustration tends to come from, and it's probably built up, right? Like me and as a human, I have a Bayesian brain, right? So keep that in mind, right? And so I have a ton of experiences where people come to me with a very combative way of arguing against my approach to the resurrection. And it's typically in the form of objections. And the objections are really just in virtue of people not knowing much about probability theory. And then now you get stuck with this really frustrating dynamic where you're like, I have to try to educate the person, but I can't really educate the person because they're being I'm not saying you're doing this, by the way, either, right?
If I am, I'm certainly trying not to. So if
no, I'm not. Very explicitly, I'm not saying you're doing this, right? But there's what ends up happening is you get stuck in this place where you have to educate on this really, really nuanced stuff, but that you can't really do it because you have this social roadblock because people are trying to argue with you rather than take a second to learn about it.
Which and again, that's my fundamental question to you, right? And I understand that you come at this from a academic and really into it and going down every rabbit hole kind of a point of view. Is there a way that you
like I said, there is. You just use folk language, right? I'm just gonna do the thing by ask questions instead, really, at the end of the day. It's just be like, hey, well,
so
why would I have all of this testimony if Jesus wrote if Jesus rose from the dead? I feel like I would have all this testimony, and if Jesus did not rise from the dead and it was just a big hallucination or anything like that, it feels like
it's invented by Constantine.
Well, I would just like to challenge you. And when I say challenge, I don't mean that I'm challenging you. But I would, if there is a way that you could do a reductio of your system to bring it into the realm of modern evangelization, if you could synthesize the way you think about this.
I teach high schoolers. I teach high schoolers, like, and by high schoolers I mean like 9th graders, this stuff.
I've only ever taught graduate students, so I've never taught high schoolers.
Yeah, well, not anymore. I shouldn't say that. That my position was eliminated a while ago. But I have.
I'm sorry.
When I worked at a school, talking about this kind of stuff, I had 9th graders that were really really explicitly able to reason like this. Yeah.
Well, we're instinctively able to reason like this. Because we're human beings and because of the way our minds work.
Bayesian inference. That's all you're doing at the end of the day.
Bayesian inference is instinctive for humans.
I'm not going to talk about prior. I'm not going to use words like prior and Bayes factor and posterior with the layperson, right?
Right, but I'm
using that structure of reasoning.
Sure, but how do I use your structure to tickle the actual instinctive thinking of people? You know what I mean?
The exact same way I just said, right?
Okay.
You tickle it by just going like, hey, just work with me for a second. If the Gospels are reliable, it seems like then we would have like all of these testimonies, and we would have the empty tomb, blah 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 blah. Let's just say we have that total data set, right? Well, do you think that the odds of that data being there if Jesus rose from the dead is higher than the odds of that data being there if like it was just a mass hallucination or something like that? And just make them answer the question.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to read the paper you just linked. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole. I'm going to be about a week, and then maybe you and I could have another conversation.
Sounds good, brother.
And Than, don't you have books coming out on this as well, or no?
On what specifically? Because I have my book on theodicy coming out.
I thought it was related to this. Never mind then.
Yeah, it does. My book on theodicy doesn't really dig into Bayes too much. My book on the resurrection does a little bit, but it's not going to be. It's going to be pop level. So.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. Maybe I'd write a book on Bayes, but I don't think it would actually be worth my time.
Right. All right, guys, we're clocking in here at like 3 hours, but thanks to anyone who watches in for the recording, and Than, did you want to plug yourself in before we tune out?
No, I mean I'm Than. I'm from a channel called Inspiring Philosophy. We do apologetics and stuff. You can come check it out.
Yeah.
You may have heard of it.
Yeah. And then modern atheism usual.
Yeah. I'm Juan on my channel. I have a small channel called Modern Atheism. You can also check it out if you want.
Yeah.
Also, really quick. Oh, sorry. Finish your thought, Paulus.
I was just gonna say finally Imago Logos. Roy,
we
never mind.
No, we're here. Pull up our channel real quick. Sorry, I was doing something.
Yeah, no worries.
You mind if I also pull up mine, because whenever I say the name, it's too complicated.
Oh yeah, I forgot you were here, young Christian.
Yeah. So
sorry.
okay. So that would be my.
For some reason,
channel.
I can't tag you in my streams, by the way.
Same.
So
yeah, you might be like shadow banned. I can't lie.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's our
what I
channel.
got.
We have weekly content coming out right now. In terms of big projects, we have an introduction to logic, because I guess on Imago Logos, the way that Than works with probability theory, that we kind of do a similar thing, but we just do it with logic instead of probability theory.
Gotcha.
And then we have another project.
Probability theory is a subset of
It's
logic.
kind of part of. I know it's very related.
I'm sorry. I'm just being a dick, bro.
And I know. We both know that they're very related, but like, you know.
I'm just being a dick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and this is Young Christian.
Oh, also, you should put Bust Down's Instagram.
Oh yeah,
he
true.
made a new one. He's not here, but
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Maronite Scholastic, right?
Yeah, just like pull it up so you can get it.
All right.
No. Sorry, a quick question, Tan. What about your book about the resurrection? I mean, I'm just curious. Is there some specific approach or something like new about it or something special? I don't know. Just curious about it. Or your case for the
What was the
resurrection.
question? Sorry.
About your book for the resurrection. Like, is there something like special about it? Some approach or something, something interesting you want to share about it, or just generally?
Oh, I mean, yeah, it's special because I wrote it. I'm writing it. And I'm right.
That's good enough for me. That's good enough for me.
Okay.
All right.
No, I mean, like, well, look, it's. I think it's going to be different in the sense that, like, my approach to the resurrection is just one that people don't really take. And because my argument for the resurrection is not like the McGrews, right? I argue for reliability like the McGrews do, but I also divert from them and have added in new types of arguments into their arguments for gospel reliability and all that jazz. But basically, like, my argument for the resurrection is going to kind of have this very conditional route system within it. And that's one of the reasons why it's actually coming after my theodicy book too. So
cool. Yeah, that's great. Sounds great.
Yeah. By the way, Dan, would you ever consider having like Thomas on to debate things like Trinity or something? Because like you guys had Garb and Sijuwade on to do a debate. I think it would be interesting to like have some Thomas on to do that as well.
yeah, I mean, if there's any Thomas that want to do it, but
well,
also like right now, but I will also say right now, I can't speak for Mike, but I'm also just not terribly interested on intra-church, intra-denominational disputes like that, like model of the Trinity and stuff like that. I think we are in an extremely pivotal moment in our culture where we need to stop being stupid. I'll just keep it there. Like, it's fun. It's fun to talk about this kind of stuff, but like, I think we can all agree here, whoever Christian is, right? Like, I bet you modern atheism, like, you would probably agree with this too. If Christianity is true, right? You can just conditionalize. I don't think we're gonna face Jesus and he's gonna be like, hey, what Trinity model did you hold to? It's gonna it's gonna be like, hey, I'm gonna be held responsible for the things I did with my platform to positively affect the culture for Christ. Trinity models are not going to be the thing that.
So like,
yeah, I'm saying.
Yeah, but like, Than, have you considered this argument? Premise 1, Thomas Aquinas is infallible. Conclusion, you're debunked.
Dang.
No comment.
I think you just disproved Thomas Bayes too.
Yeah, well, here's another argument. Premise 1, Cartesian demon. Premise 2, applicable to God. Conclusion, knowledge is impossible.
I mean, you've probably heard me say I don't really actually care about knowledge, so
it's over. See,
I've
this
literally said
apologist
I don't really
care
about
about knowledge. Chat, can we clip this? Take it out of context. We're gonna make like 10,000.
Taken out of context and doesn't care about knowledge.
It's hilarious.
Before we close this out, I just want to give a quick announcement. On our IP server, me and Apollos, we're gonna have a debate on October 31st, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Are the Gospels reliable? It's going to be a devil's advocate debate. So, Apollos, you're going to take the position that they are not reliable, and I will be taking the position that they are reliable. And it's going to focus primarily on eyewitness testimony and the genre, not like the usual arguments that you hear. So,
yeah, not
it'll
like
last for an hour or so, I think, or 2 hours, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So, if anyone of you is watching and you want to watch the debate, then please join the IP server.
Oh yeah, we have a debate on this Monday on the Imago Logos server too. It's at 3 p.m. EST, I think. Yeah.
It's between it's on the Islamic dilemma though.
Nice.
Gotcha. All right, and with that, we will end the stream. Thank you all for watching. This is your boy Apollo signing out. Peace. You made it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit like, subscribe, and that notification bell for more content. Got questions or ideas? Drop them in the comments below. Until then, next time, thanks for watching. This is your boy Apollo signing out. Peace.